the ice and fire demon god of Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 576. Someone he can trust and rely on. However, even though the essence of Ziwi Sky Fire and Ziwi Ice is the power of stars, the forms they transform into are fire and ice, two mutually restraining properties. Even though the two will not cancel each other out, when they exert their own power, they will hinder each other's power. In simple terms, when Ziwi Sky Fire and Ziwi Ice Star attack at the same time, the power they exert is neither 1 + 1 = 2, nor 1 + 1 is less than 1 after the repulsion of ice and fire, but 1 + 1 = 1. The purple flame bombarded the track, where everyone came from, blowing up the track. In this way, even if the pursuing goblins came here in another all-chemical minecar, they could not continue to move forward in a place without a track. And Irina's Ziwi Ice Star exploded in the air, turning into endless frost, completely freezing the passage they came from. Although the ice that sealed the passage was not very strong, as long as the goblins stopped using the all-chemical red cannons and only used the magic-breaking arrows and high-explosive arrows, the ice that sealed the passage could at least last for 2 minutes without breaking. About 200 goblins have appeared from other entrances to the underground vault, and they are chasing in your direction. Sirius's voice rang in the ears of the 5 people. Lin En looked back at Green and asked, "Teacher, how long will it take?" Green replied, 10 minutes at most. Lin En nodded slightly. According to the speed of the all-chemical minecart, even without the blessing of the magic pattern booster, the all-chemical minecart could reach their place in about 8 minutes. Lin En waved his wand, and thousands of golden threads spewed out from the top of his wand, and continued to interweave into all-chemical arrays on the farther roads, where the tracks had not been destroyed, and then sank into the ground under Lin En's control. These all-chemical arrays are all traps. Once the all-chemical minecarts that the fairies are riding on pass over the tracks above these all-chemical arrays, these all-chemical arrays will explode with a bang, blowing the fairies to pieces. About 7 minutes passed. Everyone could already hear the sound of the all-chemical minecarts clanging as they drove over. Soon, Lin En and Irina, who were standing at the front, saw dozens of all-chemical minecarts full of fairies driving towards them at the fastest speed. The fairies on the all-chemical minecarts also noticed Lin En and Irina. They raised their all-chemical crossbows without hesitation, aimed at the two, and were about to pull the trigger. But at this moment, the all-chemical array buried under them exploded under Lin En's control. The violent explosion continued to spread, and the more than 10 all-chemical minecarts flying in the front were all blown into pieces, and the fairies in these all-chemical minecarts were also blown into pieces of meat. The goblins following closely behind saw this scene and hurriedly controlled the all-chemical minecarts under them, trying to break them. However, without the help of the magic pattern booster, these all-chemical minecarts could not make an emergency stop at such a high speed. I saw dozens of all-chemical minecarts behind derailed and hit the rocks in front heavily. A rear-end collision involving more than 30 all-chemical minecarts occurred in this narrow passage. The 5 or 6 all-chemical minecarts in the front were completely squeezed and deformed under the impact of the minecarts behind, and the goblins in these 5 or 6 all-chemical minecarts even twisted their bodies abnormally, and they were about to die. However, the goblins behind did not care about the lives of the goblins who could not climb out of the all-chemical minecarts. They raised the all-chemical weapons in their hands and rushed quickly towards the ice wall formed by the blooming of the Ziwi Haxing that blocked them in front of them, trying to break it. But at this time, Green had already cracked the anti-thief waterfall. Green lightly touched the source alchemy array of the anti-thief waterfall with his magic wand, and the golden threads on the source alchemy array were peeled off like silk threads under Green's control. Then, the alchemy array that created the anti-thief waterfall completely exploded, turning into dots of golden light and dissipating into the air. At this point, the anti-thief waterfall that had protected Gringotts for hundreds of years no longer existed. Seeing the anti-thief waterfall disappear, the goblins blocked at the other end of the ice wall had red eyes. Damn it, let someone move that treasure down. I want these damn wizards to pay for the anti-thief waterfall. The leading goblin roared loudly. but the goblin beside it dissuaded him. "Captain, if the power of that shell explodes in such a narrow space, we will all be buried here." The goblin captain ignored the goblin's dissuasion. He was so anxious that he even drew out the alchemical silver sword in his hand and chopped off the head of the goblin who dissuaded him. He turned around, his eyes red, and said viciously, "Pass my order, let them move the things down. Otherwise, they will all die." On the other side of the ice wall, Lin En and others didn't care what the goblins thought. After the anti-thief waterfall disappeared completely, they got back into the alchemical mine car and continued to drive towards the Lestrange vault under Green's control. Hogwarts Castle. Harry was covered in cold sweat. After being helped out of the auditorium by Professor Tofty, he chose to give up the exam and hand in the paper early. Then, Harry quickly ran up the marble stairs and ran along the corridor, causing the portraits passing by to scold him in a low voice. He ran up a few more flights of stairs and finally rushed through the double doors of the hospital wing like a gust of wind. Seeing Harry's panic, Madame Pomfrey asked, "Potter, what are you doing?" "I need to see Professor McGonagall," Harry said breathlessly. The desperate run just now made him feel like his lungs were about to explode. "Hurry. It's an emergency." "She's not here," Madame Pomfrey said sadly. "She was taken to St. Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies and injuries this morning. How could she withstand 4 stunning curses on her chest at her age? It's a miracle that she didn't die." After learning that Professor McGonagall was not in Hogwarts Castle, Harry showed an extremely shocked expression. He asked in disbelief, "She left? Now, Dumbledore has been driven out of Hogwarts Castle, and Professor McGonagall has been sent to St. Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies and injuries by those damn horrors. And Irina handed in her paper and left more than an hour ago. No one knows where she is." Lin and Irina were always inseparable, and since he couldn't find Irina, he certainly couldn't find Lin. The people Harry could trust and rely on were now missing, which made him feel a little lost. Chapter 577 Reason? What reason do you want me to have? Exclamation mark. At this time, the bell outside the hospital ward rang. It was the bell for the end of the owl's exam. Harry stood still, looking at Madame Pomfrey, but a wave of fear hit his heart. "I'm not surprised you're shocked, Potter," Madame Pomfrey said, with a look of strong approval on her face, as if they could knock Minerva McGonagall unconscious in broad daylight. "Cowardly behavior, nothing else. Pure despicable cowardly behavior. I think they deserve to be beaten up by the students." Harry was confused, and he said absent-mindedly, "Yeah." He walked out of the hospital ward aimlessly and walked into the crowded corridor. He stood there, being knocked around by the crowd, and a feeling of panic filled his body like poison gas. Harry only felt that his brain was dizzy, as if some force was preventing him from calming down, making him irritable and uneasy, and unable to calmly consider what to do. He stumbled down the stairs and bumped into Ron and Hermione, who had finished the exam, and rushed up to him worriedly. In order to prevent passers-by from eavesdropping, they found an empty classroom. "Harry, what's wrong with you?" Hermione asked worriedly. Seeing the two people in front of him, Harry seemed to have grasped the last hope. He quickly grabbed Hermione's hand and said, "Ron, Hermione, don't be afraid of what I'm going to say." Hearing this, Ron and Hermione looked at each other. Ron said seriously, "We are your friends. We are not afraid. Please speak." Harry trembled with his hands and said tremblingly, I just dreamed that Sirius was kidnapped by Voldemort." Hearing Harry's words, Ron and Hermione's expressions changed. The two of them naturally knew that Harry had always been peeping into Voldemort's perspective in his dreams and obtaining information about Voldemort, but they also remembered what Lin and Irina said, that anything Harry experienced in his dreams could be a trap specially woven by Voldemort for Harry. Thinking of this, Hermione asked calmly, "Harry, are you sure that everything you saw is real? Is there anything unreasonable in the dream? Or is it that you should not have seen things from Voldemort's perspective in the past?" Harry understood that Hermione doubted the authenticity of his dream. Harry said loudly, "I'm not sure, but I saw Sirius being captured with my own eyes, and he was being tortured." "Wait, buddy," Ron said, "when did you dream? How come we don't know?" Harry stamped his feet anxiously and said, "Just when I was taking the exam, I fell asleep on the table, and then I saw Sirius being captured. That's it. We must rescue Sirius." Ron and Hermione looked at each other again, and both of them soared out in each other's eyes. You know, Harry had a lot of sleep last night, and even slept until 10 o'clock this morning, and didn't even have breakfast. However, in the exam that started at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Harry was so tired that he fainted in the exam room. How can this be wrong? Exclamation mark. If Harry's falling asleep was really just an accident, Ron and Hermione would never believe it. Hermione gently advised, Harry, you know you shouldn't be so tired, even if this course is about the history of magic. Think about Lin. Think about Irina. What did they say to you? Hearing this, Harry was stunned. He recalled and said, Irina said that, if one day I noticed that the duration of the pictures in my dream had changed significantly, or the content of the pictures was not very realistic, then at that time, it was very likely that Voldemort was at work. As Harry spoke, his expression became solemn. If it was the length of time he was in the dream, this time he seemed to be in Voldemort's perspective for a longer time than before, and he was even kicked out of the dream after he saw Sirius being tortured. In the past, the length of time Harry entered Voldemort's perspective was shorter and shorter, but this time it was unusually longer. But just because of this, Harry was not willing to believe that this dream was false and fabricated. Because this dream was not much longer than the last one, and even shorter than the one when Mr. Wheel-Eye was attacked by a giant snake. As for the unrealistic content of the picture, Harry didn't notice anything wrong, or in other words, if Voldemort had gone to great lengths to weave a false dream for Harry, then with Voldemort's magic level, Harry would not have noticed anything wrong. The scene of Irina persuading him earnestly in the room of requirement that day, and the scene of Sirius being tortured by Voldemort in the dream, appeared alternately in front of Harry, making him feel completely confused. A trap? But what if that was true? He could hardly keep his sanity. He thought so. If the scene in the dream is true, then Sirius will be killed by Voldemort, and he will lose his only godfather, his only relative. And that is just because he regarded it as a trap and ignored it. Thinking of this, Harry couldn't control his emotions, and he collapsed and shouted, I can't guarantee whether it is true or not, but I only know that, if I don't save him, I may lose my last relative. Even if there is only a 1 in 10,000 chance that it is not a trap, I dare not gamble. I can't bet on Sirius' life. Seeing Harry yelling, Ron and Hermione both looked solemn. Maybe the content in the dream is true. Maybe what Harry saw was not Voldemort's trap. They can't be sure of the authenticity of Harry's dream, but they can be sure that Harry must be affected by Voldemort's soul fragment now. They can perceive that the soul fragments hidden in Harry's mind have become more active, and the symptoms brought about by that are Harry's irritability, temper and uncontrollable emotions. Be rational, Harry, Ron said tentatively. You may have been influenced by Voldemort's soul fragments. The decision you make now may not be based on your true heart. Harry yelled, reason? What kind of rationality do you want me to have? My godfather has been tortured by Voldemort like that. How can I be rational? Huh. I watched him being tortured by Voldemort with a Cruciatus curse, and I just sat there and did nothing. Is this what you call rationality? Chapter 578 Professor Snape, please, look at me carefully. Even if you want to save Sirius, you have to calm down first. Hermione said calmly, if you want to save Sirius in your current state, I can only tell you clearly that you are going to die. Come on, Harry, calm down and tell me what you saw. Hearing Hermione's words, Harry forced himself to calm down and said, I saw it. There is a room in the Department of Mysteries, which is full of shelves. On the shelves are those small crystal balls. They are at the end of the 97th row of shelves. He wants to use Sirius to get what he wants from there. He is torturing Sirius. He said he would kill him in the end. Harry found that his voice was trembling and his knees were shaking. He walked to a table and sat down, trying to calm himself down. Harry tried to describe what he saw as clearly as possible, but even so, Hermione still had some concerns. She hesitated and said, what I want to say is, you know, Harry, Voldemort knows you. He knows you will definitely go to save Sirius. If it was a trap, and he just wanted to lure you into the Department of Mysteries. Hermione. It doesn't matter whether he wants to lure me to the Department of Mysteries. They have sent Professor McGonagall to St. Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies and injuries. Lin and Irina don't know where they went. There is no one in the Order of the Phoenix in Hogwarts Castle to tell. If we don't go, Sirius will die. Harry roared loudly. Professor Snape, please, look at me carefully. At this moment, the door of the classroom was opened. Harry, Ron and Hermione quickly shut up and turned around. They saw Ginny walked in, her face full of curiosity, followed by Luna. She was still as usual, as if she had floated into the room inadvertently. Hello. Ginny looked at the three people hesitantly and said, we recognized Harry's voice. What are you yelling about? Harry felt very irritable when he thought that Sirius might still be tortured by Voldemort. He said rudely, none of your business. Seeing Harry's attitude, Ginny raised her eyebrows and her tone became cold. You don't have to talk to me in this tone. I just wonder if I can help. Harry refused at once. You can't help. Luna said calmly, your attitude is quite rude. Harry cursed angrily. He didn't want to talk to anyone. However, Hermione looked at Ginny and Luna in surprise and said, wait. Harry, they can help. Harry and Ron looked at her in confusion. Listen to me, Hermione said anxiously. Harry, we need to make sure whether Sirius has really left the headquarters. If so, they can also help. Have you forgotten that they are the rare DA members who have passed Lin's difficult mode illusion test? Hermione clearly remembered that Irina had told her in person that every member of the DA who passed the difficult mode illusion test had the ability to easily kill a Death Eater or survive in the hands of more than 5 Death Eaters. If they really want to rescue Sirius from Voldemort and those Death Eaters, then these partners who have passed the difficult mode illusion test will be their best comrades. Harry raised his eyebrows. He agreed with Hermione's statement. He asked, how can I be sure that Sirius has really left the headquarters? I can't just run out of Hogwarts Castle and run all the way back to the headquarters, can I? Hermione said, have you forgotten? Lin made a pair of two-way mirrors for you and Sirius. You can use the two-way mirrors to contact Sirius. If he is at the headquarters, he will definitely be able to contact you. Hearing this, Harry's eyes lit up. He immediately ran back to the Gryffindor dormitory, took out his two-way mirror, and returned to the empty classroom. In front of everyone, Harry injected magic into the two-way mirror and tried to contact Sirius. However, the picture in the two-way mirror was still chaotic, and nothing could be seen clearly, as if something had completely cut off the connection of the two-way mirror. Lin had made this two-sided mirror a year ago. He naturally would not have expected that he would form a team to rob Gringotts on this day, and he would not have thought that Green would place the old chemical signal blocker at number 12 Grimmauld Place. When Green installed the old chemical signal blocker, Lin did not remember that he had made a pair of two-sided mirrors for Harry and Sirius a year ago, which prevented him from granting the two-sided mirror the authority to pass through the blockage of the old chemical signal blocker in time. It was under this coincidence that the signal of this two-sided mirror was intercepted by the old chemical signal blocker at number 12 Grimmauld Place, and Harry was unable to contact Sirius. Damn it. The two-sided mirror is ineffective. Sirius must have been captured, so he couldn't receive my communication request, Harry said with a livid face. After seeing the two-sided mirror without any picture, Ron and Hermione's hearts sank completely. They finally believed that Sirius was captured by Voldemort. In fact, if Harry had been more careful and contacted number 12 Grimmauld Place through the fireplace in the professor's office, he would have seen Sirius sitting in the living room safely, doing logistics work. But the existence of the two-way mirror made him believe what he thought in his heart, that Sirius was captured by Voldemort. Since Sirius has really been captured, Hermione quickly accepted the so-called fact. She said, then we should also consider who we should call to rescue Sirius. Hearing Hermione's words, Harry frowned and said, calling people. For things like this, the fewer people know, the better. Hermione advised, Harry, we have never been alone. We have partners and comrades, don't we? Everyone in the DA Army is someone we can trust. Ginny finally understood what happened. She nodded and said, yes, we can help. I'm very proficient in the Shattering Curse and the Bat Curse. Killing a few Death Eaters is not a problem. Harry finally gave in. He said, okay, now we have you, me, Ron, Ginny and Luna, so who else should we look for? Hermione thought for a while and said a name, Irving Farley. He is Len's friend, and he is very powerful. Remember? The first time he took the illusion test in the difficult mode, he passed it with 1 life. Chapter 579 I wins test. Harry hesitated for a moment, then agreed to Hermione's suggestion. After spending a few years with Lin and others, their prejudice against Slytherin was no longer as serious as when they first entered Hogwarts. Moreover, Irving had taught them many magics as an assistant in the DA Army's gathering. In addition to Irving, Hermione also proposed to candidates, Astoria Greengrass and Neville Longbottom, as well as 2 other members of Hufflepuff Academy. The names of the 2 members of Hufflepuff Academy were the wizard Addy Reaver and the witch Elsa Jones. Addy Reaver and Elsa Jones were both members who passed the difficult mode of the illusion test in the recent DA Army gatherings. Among them, Elsa Jones's flying skills were great. If she had not been very interested in Quidditch, she would have been selected for the Hufflepuff Quidditch team with her talent. When Hermione was chatting with Elsa, she learned that her aunt was Gwenja Jones, the captain and beater of the Hellhead Harpy Quidditch national team. Soon after Harry, Ron and Ginny volunteered to find someone. About 15 minutes later, everyone gathered in this classroom. Harry stood up and told the people who came here that Sirius was captured by Voldemort and taken to the Department of Mysteries, and they planned to go to the Department of Mysteries to rescue Sirius. After learning the ins and outs of the matter, Neville agreed to Harry's request without hesitation. Irving raised his eyebrows and asked, "Have you communicated with Lin about this matter?" Harry shook his head and said, "I can't find Lin, and I don't have his contact information. The two-way mirror in my hand can only establish a connection with Sirius, but I can't contact Sirius." "I see." Irving nodded slightly. "I'll contact Lin." As he said, Irving took out a two-way mirror, which was the tool he used to contact Lin. Irving injected magic power into the two-sided mirror in his hand, quietly waiting for Lin's response. Unfortunately, in order to prevent the goblins from locating their exact location through the transmission path of the alchemical signal, Lin and other combatants were equipped with miniature alchemical signal blockers, which made Lin's two-sided mirror ineffective. At least before Lin and others got the Hufflepuff Gold Cup and left Gringotts, no one except Sirius could contact Lin and others. After discovering that the two-sided mirror in his hand had also lost its effect, Irving couldn't help but feel a little surprised. "It seems that they are doing something important," Irving said. "I will leave a message for Lin and others on the two-sided mirror. As for the plan to go to the Department of Mysteries to rescue Sirius, I agree." Sirius was a comrade in arms of Lin's father Henry Rowe, and also Lin's uncle. Irving knew this. Therefore, even if this is indeed a trap, as long as there is a 1 in 1,000 chance that it is true, he has to give it a try, not for anything else, just to repay Lin's kindness. Otherwise, if Sirius really died for this, Irving didn't know how to face Lin. After Irving agreed to the rescue plan, Astoria also agreed. Andy and Elsa, after hesitating for a while, also chose to agree to Harry's request. Andy believed that the Death Eaters were their enemies on the road to growth after all. Even if they didn't face them this time, they would have to face them one day in the future. At least now they have the key to the portal made by Irina. If they really couldn't defeat those Death Eaters, they wouldn't be unable to escape and die there. Elsa hoped from the bottom of her heart that she could help Harry and save his godfather's life. In the DA Army's assembly, Harry, as Irina's assistant, also guided her to practice spells. She was able to pass the difficult mode of the illusion test, and Harry also had a part in the credit. So, Irving looked at Harry calmly and asked, "How are you going to take us to the Department of Mysteries? You know, we can't use the Anywhere key in our hands to get there. That's what saves our lives." In fact, Irving had no less than 100 Anywhere keys in his hand, but he had no intention of taking them out. Seeking a way to get to the Ministry of Magic was Irving's test for Harry. If Harry couldn't even think of a way to get to the Ministry of Magic, then Irving really needed to consider whether this rescue operation was meaningful. After all, how could he expect a guy who couldn't even get to the Ministry of Magic to lead them to victory? Exclamation mark. Hearing Irving's question, the smile that had finally appeared on Harry's face froze, and he pondered. They couldn't take the portkey to the Ministry of Magic, let alone fly all the way there on a broomstick. Not to mention that not all of the 10 people had a good flying talent. The time it would take to get to the Ministry of Magic on a broomstick alone was enough for Voldemort to kill Sirius hundreds of times. Suddenly, Harry had an idea, and he said loudly, "Umbridge's office." Before Umbridge died, the fireplace in her office was the only fireplace in Hogwarts Castle that could be directly connected to the Ministry of Magic. Although Umbridge is dead, the fireplace in her office has not been revoked. We can break into her office and reach the Ministry of Magic through the Flu network. Harry said so. At the beginning, in order to prevent the young wizard from getting in touch with the outside world, Umbridge blocked all channels that could connect to the outside world, leaving only the fireplace in her office. Her fireplace is not only not monitored by the Flu Network administration, but can reach any open fireplace, and has the authority to reach the Ministry of Magic directly. After getting the plan given by Harry, Irving nodded slightly, and he said softly, "Okay. Take these things, one for each person." As Irving spoke, he took out 9 alchemical rings and placed them in front of Harry and others. "What is this?" Ron took the ring and asked curiously. Irving explained, "The anti-curse ring made by Lin can resist any black magic, except the 3 unforgivable curses. This is a one-time alchemical item, so you sit and cherish it." Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up, and they each took an alchemical ring. "Let's go, target the Department of Mysteries," Harry said loudly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 580, Irina's Path to the Demon King level. 10 people walked out of the classroom in an orderly manner, crossed the corridor, and came to the closed wooden door of the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor's office. After Umbridge died last night, this office was completely closed and no one had entered this office. Harry walked up, raised his wand, and shouted in a low voice, "Alaho." However, the wooden door was still closed, and there was no sign of it being opened. Hermione walked over with a frown, and she said, "It seems that this wooden door has been cast with an anti-unlocking spell. We have to find a way to open this door." "Get out of the way, Potter," Granger and River shouted. Thunder explosion. The orange-red light lit up, and Harry and Hermione quickly got out of the way. I saw the orange-red beam bombarding the wooden door, blowing it to pieces. Everyone raised their arms to block the sawdust flying towards them. Looking at the office where even the door frame was blown away, Harry looked at the little badger of Hufflepuff who looked very kind on weekdays with a twitching mouth. "Let's go, don't waste time, we still have to save people, right?" Andy said so, facing everyone's gaze. After Irving looked at Andy with appreciation, he took the lead in walking into the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor's office. After checking the fireplace, he turned back and said, "The fireplace is normal and can be used." Hearing this, Harry hurried over and found the flu powder hidden by Umbridge after searching through the boxes and cabinets in the office for a while. After Andy walked into the office, he waved his wand and used the restoration charm to repair the wooden door. Harry divided the flu powder in his hand with the other 9 people, then took the lead in walking into the fireplace, sprinkled the flu powder in his hand, and said loudly, "Ministry of Magic." At the same time, in Gringotts, the underground vault. After the 5 people arrived at the end of the track in the alchemical minecart, they destroyed the alchemical minecart with their wands and chose to walk forward. When they turned a corner, a huge guy appeared, which made them stop in their tracks. It was a huge fire dragon, tied to the ground not far ahead, preventing the enemy from approaching the 4 or 5 deepest vaults behind it. Because it had been imprisoned underground for too long, the scales on the huge fire dragon had become pale and loose. Its eyes were cloudy pink, and both hind legs were wearing heavy shackles, with thick chains on them connected to huge piles deeply driven into the stone ground. Its huge wings with spikes were folded on both sides of its body. If they were spread out, they would occupy the entire space of the underground vault. It seemed to sense the arrival of Lin En and others. It turned its ugly head towards the crowd, roared, and opened its mouth to spit out dozens of meters of dragon flames. Seeing this, Lin En frowned, and when he raised his hand, the flames that swept towards everyone were decomposed into primitive magic out of thin air. "Your fire magic has improved again." Seeing this scene, Dumbledore looked at Lin En deeply and said so. Hearing this, Lin En just grinned. In the second half of the school year, Lin En read all the elemental magic books that recorded fire magic from the bookshelf on the 5th floor of the Roll Castle dozens of times, and his understanding of fire magic has also been raised to a higher level. Now he can forcibly deconstruct any flame, or even anything in the form of flame, into raw magic, and then reconstruct the raw magic into any kind of flame he has mastered, and use it as he wishes. Yes, Lin En's understanding of fire magic has completely reached the level of a Demon King level wizard, and Lin En's magic level has completely reached Dumbledore's level, and even surpassed it. In this realm of a Demon King level wizard, even without strong emotions as fuel, Lin En can rely on his own strength to be invincible. He no longer needs to rely on the raging anger, like he did in the Battle of Little Hangleton Village, to force his strength to break the shackles under the impetus of emotions and temporarily reach the same level as Voldemort. Irina also glanced at Lin En. In the second half of the school year, she also finished reading those elemental magic books that recorded ice magic, and her attainments in the field of ice magic also reached the level of a Demon King level wizard. The reason why she is not a real Demon King level wizard is that her mastery of Demon King level ice magic is only at the theoretical level and has never been used in practice. It can be said that Irina only needs to experience a battle that is evenly matched or quite challenging to completely sublimate herself and advance to the ranks of Demon King level wizards. At this time, someone asked, since only one battle is needed for Irina to advance to the ranks of Demon King level wizards, then why can't Lin En or Dumbledore come to practice with her? Lin En and Dumbledore are both Demon King level wizards. It doesn't seem difficult to provide Irina with a duel that is evenly matched, or even quite challenging! In fact, just like Lin En's path to becoming a Demon King level wizard, what she needs is a battle between life and death. Irina knew that Lin and Dumbledore would never kill her, which made it impossible for her to treat this battle as a life and death battle, nor could she use it to advance to the level of a Demon King level wizard. Even though her attainments in the field of ice magic had already reached the level of a Demon King level wizard, she did not need strong emotions as fuel, but only high intensity battles, or wars, that would allow her to thoroughly master those theoretical knowledge, were the path for her to advance to the level of a Demon King level wizard. Irina, this fire dragon is in your hands. Newt looked at Irina with confidence and said so. Irina nodded slightly. She had already prepared to subdue the fire dragon, and she slowly walked forward. Sensing Irina's approach, the fire dragon became more and more uneasy. It kept roaring at Irina and spitting out powerful dragon flames at her. However, before the dragon flames spewed out of the fire dragon's mouth could touch Irina, they were decomposed into primitive magic power out of thin air by Lin behind her and dissipated into the air. After finding that its attacks were completely ineffective against Irina, the fire dragon panicked. It recalled the pain when the fairies slashed it with silver swords and was worried that the guy it attacked would hurt it in the same way. So, the fire dragon retreated in fear, trying to curl up its huge body. At this time, Irina had come to the fire dragon. She did not make any move to attack the fire dragon, but gently stroked the fire dragon's body that kept curling up and whispered, "Suffer, child. Please reward a monthly ticket." Chapter 581. Open the vault and all curses will end. Perhaps it felt Irina's kindness, or perhaps Irina's magical animal affinity talent took effect. Under Irina's touch, the fire dragon miraculously calmed down and did not make any aggressive moves. Seeing this, Irina showed a gentle smile, and she wiped her left hand in the pocket on her waist, and a rice ball the size of a football appeared in her hand. This magic rice ball was made by Irina according to the magic formula that Newt gave her at Christmas, which has the effect of attracting magical animals. After the appearance of this magic rice ball, the fire dragon obviously showed a feeling of eagerness to try. It tentatively stretched out its head and kept making woohoo sounds in its mouth, wanting to get the magic rice ball in Irina's hand. Irina stroked the fire dragon's head with her right hand and threw the magic rice ball into the fire dragon's mouth with her left hand. Although this magic rice ball is the size of a football, it seems so insignificant in front of the huge body of the fire dragon. After eating this magic rice ball, the fire dragon's mental state seemed much better. The formula of the magic rice ball that Newt seized from the poaching gang originally only had the function of luring magical animals, but after Newt's improvement, this magic rice ball already had certain functions of healing and replenishing energy. After the fire dragon ate this magic rice ball, Irina took out the second magic rice ball like a magic trick. The fire dragon, who had tasted the taste of the magic rice ball, naturally could not refuse the temptation of the second magic rice ball. Even with the shackles on his feet, he could not help but take a few steps forward to get this magic rice ball. "Be good, don't move," Irina said softly, and when she raised her hand, a silent and wandless cutting spell broke through the air and shattered the shackles on the fire dragon's feet. Feeling the threat brought by the cutting spell, the fire dragon spit out 2 flames uneasily, but after realizing that the source of the threat did not attack itself, but shattered the shackles on its feet, it suddenly felt a sense of joy in its heart. While the dragon was clumsily adjusting to its escaped body, Irina took out the briefcase, placed it in front of the dragon, and opened it, revealing the path to the small world. "Come on, dear child, go in," Irina said softly, luring the dragon with the magic rice ball. The magic rice ball was obviously more attractive to the dragon than breaking through the defense of the underground vault and leaving here. It walked towards Irina holding the magic rice ball step by step, and then plunged into it as Irina threw the magic rice ball into the briefcase. "Success," Irina said. "I'll go in and comfort the child first, and you go open the vault." With that, Irina also got in through the open briefcase. Newt followed closely and got into Irina's briefcase. Although he trusted his student to take good care of the dragon, it was Irina's first time to come into contact with a dragon after all, so it was safer to watch from the sidelines. Lin, Green and Dumbledore walked to the front of the Lestrange vault. Irina and Newt entered the suitcase to appease the dragon, which was part of their plan. Looking at the wooden door of the vault engraved with countless defensive alchemical arrays and countless defensive magics, Lin waved his wand and used the secret method to display the alchemical array. Lin and Dumbledore did not intend to force the vault open. Although the vault door was made of wood, the magic in it was something that even they, as Demon King level wizards, could not guarantee that they could break it in a short time. You know, from the weak magic fluctuations emanating from the vault door, Lin sensed the breath of ancient magic. Therefore, Lin, Green and Dumbledore followed the original battle plan, cracked and obtained the authority to open the vault door, and bypassed those defensive magics to open the vault door. This was the best way. After the alchemical array of the vault door appeared, Green quickly stepped forward and cracked the alchemical array. After about 10 minutes, Irina and Newt got out of the suitcase. Following them came the little curled-winged demon and the bird snake Ruai. Compared with 2 years ago, the little curled-winged demon seemed to have grown a lot. When its body was fully expanded, it could wrap 10 adult wizards. The bird snake Ruai could become even bigger. Under Irina's command, as soon as the bird snake Ruai jumped out of the suitcase, it expanded its body vigorously and filled the entire underground vault. Looking at the bird snake, that was several times larger than the fire dragon just now, Irina felt full of security. "Ruai, when those goblins come later, I'll trouble you to stop them. And the little curled-winged demon, you have to help Ruai too." Irina smiled and rubbed the heads of the little curled-winged demon and Ruai, saying so. Hearing Irina's words, the little curled-winged demon and Ruai both nodded slightly. Ruai looked at the passage they came from with vigilance, while the little curled-winged demon lay on Ruai's head, ready to attack the goblins at any time. "It's done." At this moment, Green shouted with joy, and he installed the template in his hand into the goblin gloves of everyone. A new alchemy array was refined in this template, which was the same alchemy array as the goblin's secret key, which was the second authority required to open the vault door. After Green put on the goblin gloves, he pressed his palm on the vault door. The moment Green's palm touched the vault door disappeared, revealing a hole. The other side of the hole was the Lestrange vault, which was filled from the ground to the ceiling with gold coins and golden wine glasses, silver armor, furs of various magical animals with spines or wings, potions in bottles, and a skull still wearing a crown. Be careful, the treasures in the Lestrange vault are all under strong fire and replication spells. Don't fall for them, Lin said. Green came forward He took out the magic forbidden staff from his pocket and was about to activate it to remove the fire and replication spells on these treasures. However, Lin stopped him. Lin said, "Teacher, why use a butcher knife to kill a chicken? The fire and replication spells on these treasures have no secondary protection. We can just use the spell of the end of all curses, and we don't need the magic forbidden staff." Hearing this, Green was stunned. He raised his hand and used his own magic perception to explore it. He said with a smile, "Okay, I overestimated them. Come on. 3, 2, 1, end of all curses." As Green's voice fell, Dumbledore, Lin, Irina and Newt all waved their wands and shouted, "End of all curses." Chapter 582 Let's rob them all. Invisible power spread out, and the 2 Demon King level wizards and 3 wizards above the elite auras jointly cast the all curses ending curse, which instantly lifted all the protective magic in the Lestrange vault. Found it. Lin smiled and looked at the top of the pile of treasures, where a small, glittering golden cup was placed. Hufflepuff's golden cup. Dumbledore walked over and picked up Hufflepuff's golden cup with his wand. He grabbed Hufflepuff's golden cup, feeling the evil breath of the Horcrux in it, and his brows furrowed. Dumbledore said in a low voice, "Ms. Hufflepuff's relics have become Voldemort's tool for his own immortality. If Ms. Hufflepuff knew about this, how sad she would be." Lin took Hufflepuff's golden cup from Dumbledore, and the red and black fiend fire ignited from his palm, wrapping Hufflepuff's golden cup from beginning to end. Under the burning of the all-consuming fiend fire, the Horcrux in the Hufflepuff's cup let out a shrill scream. Then, a black unknown liquid slowly seeped out of the Hufflepuff's cup, flowing down Lin's fingers and finally falling to the ground. The 5 people all watched silently as the relic that symbolized Hufflepuff was shattered under the burning of the fiend fire. Lin handed the remains of the Hufflepuff's cup to Dumbledore and said softly, "Return the cup to its original owner, Professor, even if it is only these remains." Dumbledore nodded slightly and put away the remains of the Hufflepuff's cup. Dumbledore looked at the 4 people and said, "Now that we have the Hufflepuff's cup, we should leave." Hearing Dumbledore's words, Lin gave a different opinion. He only heard him say, "Professor, I don't think we can leave so soon." Dumbledore raised his eyebrows and looked at Lin in confusion. Lin En smiled and said, "Don't forget, among the 5 vaults guarded by this dragon, except for the vault of the Royal family, the owners of the other 4 vaults are all Death Eaters." Hearing Lin En's words, Irina immediately understood what Lin En meant. She stood beside Lin En, smiled and continued Lin En's words, saying, "So, instead of leaving these treasures to those Death Eaters, and letting those Death Eaters use these treasures to help Voldemort rise again, it is better for us to rob all these treasures at once. Not to mention letting them develop the power to resist Voldemort and the Death Eaters. At least these innocent treasures will not be used to help the evil. What do you think, Professor Dumbledore?" Irina looked at Dumbledore. Hearing this, Dumbledore hesitated. He was willing to participate in the plan to rob Gringotts, just to get the Horcrux Hufflepuff's gold cup, not to rob treasures. Since the gold cup has been obtained, then if they continue to rob, wouldn't it be no different from real robbers? Exclamation mark. Seeing that Dumbledore was struggling with his inner thoughts and could not make a decision, Green patted Dumbledore on the shoulder and said, "Don't worry, Albus. These things are in front of you. If you keep them, you will be aiding the enemy. You will be personally funding Voldemort's resurgence. Then how many people will join the Death Eaters for these riches? How many innocent people will die at the hands of those Death Eaters? And how many of our comrades will die because of the equipment that Voldemort used the riches to purchase? Think about it, Albus." Green said so. He stepped back and let Dumbledore make the decision. After a long while, Dumbledore sighed and said, "Forget it, let's rob them all." Lin En nodded slightly, smiled and spread his hands, saying, "Okay, 5 vaults, 1 for each of us." I looked at the alchemy arrays on the doors of these vaults, and they all require the same permissions, which means that the goblin gloves in our hands are universal for these 5 vault doors. I'm in charge of the vault of the Rowell family. Anyway, after the goblins know that I, Rowell, participated in the robbery, they will definitely take the things in the vault of the Rowell family for themselves. It's better for me to rob it in advance. Lin En said so. Lin En assigned a vault to each of the other 4 people, and Dumbledore was responsible for packing up the treasures in the Lestrange vault that had been opened. On the other side, the Ministry of Magic Hall. Harry and others who came out of the fireplace quickly came to the main hall, and the 10 people looked around at everything around them. At this time, the only sound in the main hall was the endless sound of water from the golden fountain. Streams of shining water sprayed from the top of the wizard's wand, the arrows of the centaurs, the tip of the goblin's hat, and the ears of the house elves in the fountain, and fell into the nearby pool. "Hurry up, this way," Harry said in a low voice. The 10 people ran quickly in the hall. They passed the Magic Brothers fountain, and walked towards the elevator of the Ministry of Magic. As time went by, Harry's ominous premonition became stronger and stronger. He felt that Sirius could be killed by Voldemort at any time, which made him speed up his pace. When the 10 people walked into the elevator one by one, Harry pressed the 9th button, and the golden fenced door of the elevator closed with a bang. The elevator began to descend, and the chain clicked. During the elevator ride, the 10 people were all in a state of extreme vigilance, especially Harry, who was standing in the front. Compared with the day when Harry came to the Ministry of Magic for trial and took the elevator with Lin, he felt that the noise made by the elevator when it was running seemed to be much louder. Harry was worried that the noise would alarm other staff members in the Ministry of Magic. Fortunately, the situation he was worried about did not happen. The elevator stopped. "Department of Mysteries." A cold female voice rang out. The elevator's gate slid open gently, and everyone walked out of the elevator and came to the corridor outside. It was quiet all around, giving people a quiet and eerie feeling. Harry turned around and looked at the pure black door leading to the Department of Mysteries. Just like the countless times he had experienced in his dreams, he walked forward, the door opened, and he took the lead and strode across the threshold. They found themselves standing in a large circular room. Everything here was pure black, just like the bottomless abyss, even the floor and ceiling of the room. There were many black doors inlaid on the pure black circular wall in the room. These black doors all looked exactly the same, without markings or handles. They could not tell the difference between these black doors in any way. The black walls are dotted with some branch-like candles, the flames are blue, and the swaying cold light is cast on the shiny marble floor, making people feel that there is a dark water surface under their feet, which may make them sink into it at any time and never be reborn. Thanks to the book friend Chloe_ek for the 100 book coins reward. Thank you for your support. Chapter 583, Reckless, Stupid, Stubborn. Number 12, Grimmauld Place. Dozens of surveillance screens appeared in front of Sirius, showing what happened in the Ministry of Magic, diagonally in Gringotts. These small metal balls conscientiously revealed everything they saw to Sirius without reservation. But at this moment, Sirius stood up suddenly. He looked at the screen projected by the metal balls in the Ministry of Magic, with surprise, fear, anxiety, and disbelief appearing alternately on his face. How is it possible? How could Harry and the others? Sirius' eyes were red with anger. He watched in disbelief as Harry and the members of the DAME appeared from the fireplace in the Ministry of Magic, walked through the hall of the Ministry of Magic, entered the elevator, and finally disappeared from the surveillance screen. Hearing Sirius' surprised voice, Lin, Irina and Dumbledore in the underground vault of Gringotts were stunned. Dumbledore frowned deeply, pressed his finger on the alchemical headset, and asked, "Sirius, what did you say?" Sirius' tone was a little urgent, and he said quickly, "I saw Harry and 9 other students wearing wizard robes with the emblem of Hogwarts School, appearing from the fireplace of the Ministry of Magic, passing through the hall of the Ministry of Magic, and leaving the surveillance screen, after entering the elevator. If I remember correctly, today should be the last day of their OWL's exam, right? Why are they in the Ministry of Magic? What happened?" Sirius was confused and kept muttering. You know, Harry is his godson and the person closest to him now. No matter what, he doesn't want Harry to get into trouble. Stubborn. After learning about what happened in the hall of the Ministry of Magic, Lin cursed in his heart. In this school year, they spent so much time persuading Harry, and even told him the possibility that Voldemort deceived Harry, and told him how to distinguish the authenticity of the images projected into Harry's mind. They have done everything they could, but what about Harry? Exclamation mark. Reckless, stupid, obstinate. Lin En pressed his finger on the alchemical headset and said in a deep voice, "Professor Dumbledore, I'm afraid I have to trouble you to gather everyone in the Order of the Phoenix. If I'm not mistaken, Harry must have been affected by the Horcrux fragments in his mind, or in other words, deceived by Voldemort. Voldemort probably used the false picture of Harry's important person being captured to deceive Harry into going to the Department of Mysteries to rescue that important person. Voldemort's purpose is most likely the prophecy crystal ball placed in the Department of Mysteries, which can be seen from the attack on Mr. Weasley." Lin En said so, and he accelerated the speed of packing the treasures in the vault of the royal family. On the other side, Irina couldn't help but look worried after learning that Harry and others went to the Department of Mysteries. There were too many things going on these days. First, there was the Owl's exam for the 5th year wizards. Then, the day after the DA killed Umbridge, they took advantage of Fudge's dismissal to rob Gringotts. This made Irina forget that the last day of the Owl's exam was not only the day when Fudge was dismissed and they robbed Gringotts, but also the day when Voldemort used the Horcrux fragments to deceive Harry and induce Harry to go to the Department of Mysteries to rescue Sirius, who was not captured. Although Irina's face was still anxious, she did not lose her mind. Irina said calmly, "The underground vault of Gringotts is protected by both alchemy and magic. My anywhere key cannot break through the blockade here immediately. We must force our way through the underground vault and expose it to the sunlight before we can use the anywhere key to leave." Hearing what Lin and Irina said, Dumbledore's face gradually became serious. He immediately said, "Sirius, tell old Barty to use the two-way mirror to contact the members of the Order of the Phoenix and ask them to go to the Department of Mysteries to rescue Harry." Grimm's alchemical signal blocker was installed at number 12 Grimmauld Place, which prevented Sirius from directly contacting the members of the Order of the Phoenix. Therefore, he had to relay the message to old Barty at the Ministry of Magic and let old Barty, whose alchemical signal was not restricted, relay Dumbledore's order. Sirius was anxious, but he still suppressed his uneasiness and did as Dumbledore told him. Ministry of Magic, outside the Aura's office. After hearing Sirius call, Barty looked at the Auras who were discussing not far away, stepped back a few steps calmly, and after making sure that the Auras could not hear his voice, he pressed the alchemical headset. "I will relay the order to everyone in the Order of the Phoenix. In addition, do you need me to ask the Auras to investigate the Department of Mysteries?" Barty said. After Sirius relayed Barty's words, Lin immediately said, "Don't. Sirius, tell Barty to send everyone in the Aura office to come to Gringotts for help. Our operation is almost over. As for the Department of Mysteries, let Barty and Scrimgeour go to rescue Harry together. The magic levels of the Auras in the Aura office are uneven. If they face Voldemort, their presence will only increase unnecessary casualties," Lin said. Hearing this, Sirius hesitated. Sirius hoped that all the Auras could rescue Harry. With every additional person, Harry would have a better chance of safety. However, Sirius's rationality made him do what Lin asked. After receiving Lin's instructions, old Barty stepped forward. He looked at Scrimgeour and said, "It's almost time, Rufus, for the Auras to rush to Gringotts for help." Scrimgeour nodded. It had been nearly 5 hours since the robbery of Gringotts. If Dumbledore and his men were successful, the robbery of Gringotts would be coming to an end. Aura office, rush to Gringotts for help immediately and stop the robbery. Scrimgeour looked at the many Auras and said so. Hearing Scrimgeour's words, a group of Auras walked towards the fireplace in the Aura office. This fireplace was authorized by the Flu Network Administration to visit the fireplaces of most families and public fireplaces without permission. "Kingsley, Tonks, you stay." Just as Kingsley and Tonks were about to walk into the fireplace, old Barty's voice rang out. According to Lin and Dumbledore's request, he needed to contact 4 members of the Order of the Phoenix to reinforce the Department of Mysteries, and unfortunately, Kingsley and Tonks, who were also Auras, were 2 of them. Chapter 584 Harry, you're such a fucking idiot. Kingsley and Tonks stopped in confusion and looked over. Scrimgeour also looked over. Old Barty put the two-way mirror on his back and injected magic into it, generating a text asking for help from the Order of the Phoenix, and sent it to the two-way mirrors held by Lupin, Moody, Kingsley and Tonks. Old Barty said lightly. I have received information that Death Eaters have broken into the Department of Mysteries. You will follow me to investigate. As he said that, Old Barty turned and headed towards the elevator. Hearing Old Barty's words, Scrimgeour's face showed a solemn expression. He knew that Old Barty had no need to deceive him, so he immediately followed Old Barty's steps. Kingsley and Tonks took out the two-way mirror while Scrimgeour was facing away from them. After seeing the content in it, their faces immediately changed, and they quickly followed Old Barty's steps. By this time, Harry and the others had passed through the room filled with water tanks filled with brains, the room with the veil leading to death, and forced the door open, passed through the time hall, and came to the room with the prophecy crystal balls. This place was as tall as a church, filled with tall shelves, and on the shelves were many small grey prophecy crystal balls. Under the reflection of the wall candlesticks between the shelves, these prophecy crystal balls shone dimly. This place was like the pure black circular room at the beginning. The candlelight was also blue, and there was a biting cold in the air. Harry walked forward cautiously and quietly. He looked at the dim passage between the two rows of shelves. In this extremely quiet and strange room, he could not hear any movement, nor could he see anything unexpected. Hermione whispered in Harry's ear, "You said it's in row 97. Yes," Harry replied softly, lowering his voice. "Everyone, get your wands ready." The 10 people tiptoed along the long aisle between the shelves, looking back from time to time. They saw that on the shelves where the prophecy crystal balls were placed, there was a small yellow label under each prophecy crystal ball. Some of the prophecy crystal balls flashed a strange liquid-like light, while others were dim inside, like a light bulb with a blown fuse. Soon, they passed row 84, row 85. Harry listened attentively to every tiny sound, but unfortunately, he still couldn't hear anything. Sirius might have been gagged, or unconscious. Or, he might have died. This crazy thought appeared in Harry's mind, making his whole body tense. Hermione's soft voice sounded again, 97. They gathered at the end of the 97th row of shelves, looking at the aisle next to it, but to Harry's surprise, there was no one there. No, it shouldn't be. He's here. After finding that there was nothing there, Harry's body shook. He murmured in disbelief, leading the way through the row of high shelves where the prophecy crystal balls were placed. Several prophecy crystal balls flickered softly as they passed by. Not long after, they came to the other end of the row of shelves and entered the dim candlelight again. But there was no one here either, only dusty, deathly silence. Obviously, Harry. Irving looked at Harry calmly and said, "You have been deceived, and by the way, we have been deceived together. This is a trap." As Irving's voice sounded, everyone turned their eyes to Harry. Harry's lips trembled, and a dizzy feeling came over him. He was really deceived! Exclamation mark. He came to this dangerous place and caused his friends to come here and put themselves in danger! Exclamation mark. Harry's eyes widened, unable to believe what was happening in front of him. Lin and Irina had warned him time and again, but he still fell for Voldemort's trick. A sense of guilt spread, not only for Lin and Irina, but also for his companions in front of him. If this was Voldemort's trap, then shouldn't Voldemort have shown up? Exclamation mark. Thinking of this, Harry suddenly pulled out his wand and looked around carefully. However, no one appeared in front of him, as if everything in his dream was really just a dream, and the Department of Mysteries was indeed empty except for them. "Wait, Harry, there's your name on it, there's your name on it," Ron suddenly said, pointing to a prophecy crystal ball. Harry looked over blankly and asked, "My name?" Harry walked forward and carefully looked at the yellowed label on the shelf under the dusty prophecy crystal ball. On the label, a date about 16 years ago was written in thin handwriting, followed by SPT to APWBD the Dark Lord Dan. Harry Potter. This is the text on the label, and it means Sybil Patricia Trelawney to Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore, prophecy about the Dark Lord, and, perhaps, Harry Potter. Harry stared at the prophecy crystal ball blankly and subconsciously reached out to take it down. "Wait, Harry, don't touch it." Irving's faint voice came over, and he stared at the prophecy crystal ball vigilantly. Voldemort took great pains to lure Harry here, and here happened to be a prophecy crystal ball with a prophecy about Harry and Voldemort. How can this not be a coincidence? Exclamation mark. Why? Harry said strangely. This thing has something to do with me, doesn't it? Hearing Harry's idiotic speech, veins popped up on Irving's forehead. He resisted the urge to punch Harry and regretted that he trusted him so much and handed over the command of the team to this guy whose mind was affected by the Horcrux and had long lost his rationality. I said, don't touch it, don't you understand? Irving said heavily, and he pulled out his wand. Seeing Irving's look, Harry's stubbornness came up all of a sudden. He directly grasped the prophecy crystal ball and said unconvincedly, my name is written on it. Fuck you. Irving was furious. If it weren't for the fact that Harry was his partner, not his enemy, he really wanted to give Harry a killing curse. Harry saw that nothing happened after he picked up the prophecy crystal ball. He finally put his mind at ease and looked at the prophecy crystal ball in his hand. Very good, Potter. Now turn around slowly and give it to me. But at this moment, a voice with a bit of murderous intent sounded behind Harry. Irving recognized the owner of the voice, Rodolphus Lestrange. He weakly cursed out the half-sentenced words he had said, but had not finished. Harry, you are such a fucking idiot. Chapter 585, Thunder Wabi Sabi, the mechanism of the killing curse. After hearing Rodolphus' voice behind him, Harry's body trembled. His eyes seemed to become clearer, as if an invisible haze had faded from his eyes, and he understood the situation of himself and his companions. Damn, it must be that he deliberately tried to trigger dreams these days and enter Voldemort's perspective, which led to the deep binding of Voldemort's soul fragments with his brain. This also made the soul fragments have a deeper impact on him and easier. In Harry's perception, his action of ignoring Irving's dissuasion and forcibly taking down the prophecy crystal ball was as if he was watching from a third-person perspective. God of War. Harry had no intention of submitting. He gestured to his companion in front of him, rolled sideways, and turned back to cast a God of War spell at Rodolphus. Seeing Harry trying to get rid of his control, Rodolphus cast a Cruciatus Curse without hesitation, but was dodged by Harry's sideways roll. On the contrary, Rodolphus himself failed to dodge in time, and Harry's backhanded attack cut off half of his left arm. Looking at his broken arm that could not heal under the residue of black magic, Rodolphus was in a state of uncertainty. He did not expect that he would be defeated in front of a 5th-year wizard. Come on, take the prophecy crystal ball that the master wants. Rodolphus roared, and dozens of figures suddenly appeared in the room like black mist, standing beside the shelves filled with prophecy crystal balls. Those black shadows were all Death Eaters. Among these Death Eaters, Irving recognized August Rookwood, Avery, Jugson, Mulciber, McNeil, as well as Goyle and Crabbe. Obviously, Goyle and Crabbe did not have the long-term vision of Lucius, and Lucius seemed to have given up on them in order to protect himself. In short, Goyle and Crabbe did not apparat with Lucius before the Battle of Little Hangleton. They stayed and continued to follow Voldemort as Death Eaters. In addition to the 8 named Death Eaters, the remaining 30 or 40 Death Eaters seemed to be new members of the Death Eater camp. They did not have the malnutrition they had just gotten out of Azkaban, but were ferocious. The only thing that Harry and the others were thankful for was that Voldemort was not here, and they were not without any chance of winning. After all, every member of the DA army present had the ability to easily kill a Death Eater. Even Ron, the only one among the 10 who did not pass the difficult mode of the illusion test, had enough self-protection ability. He had a good talent and attainments in the shield charm. The moment these Death Eaters appeared, everyone took action. Irving shouted in a low voice, one group of members will attack, and the rest will set up defense. The one group of members Irving mentioned refers to the first group of members who passed the difficult mode illusion test, that is, the members who passed the first 3 rallies. Irving, Astoria, Harry, Hermione and Ginny are all the one group of members he mentioned, while Luna, Neville, Andy, Elsa and Ron, who has not yet passed the difficult mode illusion test, are responsible for setting up defense. Irving took over the command and immediately arranged his own tactics. Armor protection. All protection. Luna and the other 5 people waved their wands vigorously, put on the iron armor charm for themselves and their comrades, and covered the area where they were with the all protection charm. Harry and Astoria simultaneously chanted the spell towards Rodolphus, who was closest to them, God of War. Ginny pointed her wand at Rookwood, who was about to launch a sneak attack, and shouted, tears to pieces. Compared with Astoria, Harry's fighting skills seemed to be slightly inferior. His attacks were powerful, but most of them were directly directed at the opponent without more scheming and prediction. Therefore, in order to achieve a better killing effect, Astoria did not use God of War to hit Rodolphus's vital points, but actively cooperated with Harry's attack to block Rodolphus's retreat. God of War was a rare invisible killing spell without light, which made Rodolphus unclear about the flight trajectory of the two's attacks. But from the direction of Harry's wand, Rodolphus was able to determine that the opponent was attacking his chest. He dodged sideways without hesitation and narrowly avoided the attack by rubbing his right shoulder. However, from a god's perspective, while he dodged Harry's attack, he ran headlong into Astoria's shadowless blade, which was supposed to miss. The invisible blade cut off Rodolphus' right arm, causing the wand in his hand to fly out with the broken arm. Seeing this, Irving, who was sitting in the center, waved his left hand without hesitation, and a lightning flash appeared from his palm and shot towards Rodolphus' head. Astoria quickly waved her wand in coordination, casting 2 silent stun spells, which blocked Rodolphus's movement space on the left and right. Rodolphus, who had lost both arms and his wand, had no way to dodge. The lightning bombarded Rodolphus' head, turning it into a crimson blood mist like a bursting watermelon. Seeing that their own 40-odd people not only failed to take down the 10 students, but also lost a senior Death Eater, the Death Eaters were all angry. Green light lit up all over the sky. The dark green beams kept lighting up from the tops of the Death Eaters' wands, carrying the power of taking lives, and approached everyone. Seeing this scene, everyone showed a vigilant look. You know, all defensive magic, including the armor charm and the universal protection charm, are ineffective against the killing curse, one of the 3 unforgivable curses. Thunderbolt Wabi Sabi. At this critical moment, Irving shouted in a low voice, releasing nearly 40% of the magic power in his body, turning into thunder, and falling from the ceiling. The countless purple thunders shattered the surrounding shelves, and thousands of prophecy crystal balls fell to the ground and shattered. Endless mist rose from the broken prophecy crystal balls, turning the whole room into a white expanse. And the broken wooden shelves, under Irving's extreme control, flew quickly in the air, intertwined in front of everyone, and blocked the killing curse that broke through the air. Magic cannot stop the killing curse, but objects can. Irving used the mechanism of the killing curse to save all the members of the DA army. Chapter 586. Nowhere to hide. Desperate moment. Use the white fog and cover to disperse, and fight on your own. Iwin shouted and commanded. There were only 10 of them, while there were 30 or 40 Death Eaters. With such a huge difference in numbers, if they still used the positional warfare they had at the beginning, they would probably be shot to death by the killing curse in no time. Their only way to turn defeat into victory was to use the characteristics of this room being large enough and with enough cover to disperse and kill the Death Eaters one by one in a street-like manner. No one objected to Iwin's tactical arrangement. After the white fog released by the broken prophecy crystal balls around them dissipated, the 10 people had disappeared from the spot, hiding their bodies behind the shelves. Seeing that the DA army had disappeared, the Death Eaters also became alert. They held their wands tightly and carefully divided into 2 groups, advancing towards the front and back sides. Thunder explosion. Andy poked his head out from behind a shelf, with a high-spirited fighting spirit on his face, and he shouted loudly. And his voice attracted the attention of all the Death Eaters, or rather, Andy did it on purpose. The orange-red light flew towards the dozen Death Eaters in the front, scaring them away to avoid being killed by the explosion curse. The other Death Eaters surrounded Andy, which saved Elsa and Luna, who were almost discovered by the Death Eaters not far away. The 10 people present cast spells silently, and after Andy deliberately chanted a spell loudly to attract the Death Eaters, from time to time, several silent beams of light would break through the air from behind the shelf and attack the Death Eaters. After realizing that Andy was using himself as bait to attract him, Rookwood immediately said, "Don't worry about that damn Hufflepuff. Find Harry Potter. The master wants the prophecy crystal ball in his hand." Hearing Rookwood's words, except for Old Boyle and Old Crab who stayed to watch Andy's direction, to prevent Andy from attacking them again, the other Death Eaters no longer cared about Andy, but continued to search among the rows of shelves. They cast a series of crushing spells and explosive spells, blowing up those annoying shelves. Seeing that these Death Eaters were about to search the shelf where he was, Harry had to jump out, running towards the farther shelf, while chanting a spell towards Rookwood, Expelliarmus. A red light as thick as a child's arm broke through the air, and went straight to Rookwood. Unfortunately, Rookwood had been alert to the possible sneak attack, so this disarming spell would not hit him so easily. An invisible shield gathered in front of Rookwood, and the silent armor charm blocked Harry's disarming charm for him. However, the time Rookwood wasted in casting the spell also successfully allowed Harry to get into another bunker. However, Harry's appearance had already exposed his position, and even if he ran behind the shelf, he could not buy him much time. In less than a minute, the continuous bombardment of the explosion charm blew away the shelf in front of Harry, forcing Harry to flee again. Harry, the prophecy crystal ball. Seeing this scene, Irving, who was hiding behind another shelf, couldn't help but get a little anxious, and he growled. Hearing Irving's words, Harry no longer hesitated, and threw the prophecy crystal ball in his hand in the direction of Rookwood. In the hearts of these Death Eaters, the importance of the prophecy crystal ball is much greater than Harry, because Voldemort's order to them is to obtain the prophecy crystal ball no matter what. Therefore, after seeing the prophecy crystal ball flying over, Rookwood stopped casting spells to attack Harry, but subconsciously took a step forward and reached out to catch the prophecy crystal ball. But at this moment, Astoria leaned out at an extremely fast speed and instantly cast a silent spell. The invisible blade cut through the air and shattered the prophecy crystal ball that was close to Rookwood's outstretched hand like lightning. White mist filled out from the shattered prophecy crystal ball, and Rookwood stared blankly at the remains of the prophecy crystal ball that fell into his palm. He couldn't imagine that the mission target given to him by his master was shattered in his hands like this. Bastards. Kill them. Thunder explosion. Rookwood's eyes were red. He roared loudly and suddenly cast an explosion spell in the direction of Astoria. The orange-red light appeared in front of Astoria in an instant. Even though Astoria tried her best to dodge, the airwave from the explosion still blew Astoria's petite body away, breaking the two shelves behind her and falling to the ground. Irving, regardless of his exposed position, flew out and fell to the ground to catch Astoria, who was hitting him hard. "Are you okay?" Irving asked while flipping his left hand and shooting a palm thunder in the direction of Rookwood. Astoria sat on Irving's waist, her pretty face flushed, and she quickly flipped down, pulling Irving, who was hit by her, and hid behind a shelf not far away. "I'm fine." Astoria's voice was as thin as a mosquito's butt, but she waved her wand without slowing down. As if to vent her shame and anger, Astoria's attack frequency became higher and higher. In just 10 seconds, more than 30 divine strikes were shot by Astoria. The invisible edge slashed into the crowd, and endless bloodlight bloomed, just like the scarlet and beautiful red spider lily. Countless broken limbs and arms flew up, accompanied by the screams of the Death Eaters. "Damn it." Rookwood cursed, and his left hand was cut off by the invisible blade before he could dodge. The power of black magic remained in the broken part of his wrist, preventing his healing magic from taking effect. If there was no counter curse, he would probably lose his left hand forever. The prophecy crystal ball that Voldemort ordered them to seize had been broken, and these Death Eaters had no scruples. They knew that they would definitely be punished by Voldemort and tortured by the Cruciatus curse, which made their offensive more and more crazy. One after another, explosive spells flew towards the few remaining shelters in the room without distinguishing between enemies and friends. In less than 5 minutes, all the shelves in this room would be blown to pieces, and by then, Irving and others would have nowhere to hide. Boom. However, just when everyone had nowhere to hide and was about to fall into despair, a violent explosion sounded at the entrance of the room, and the black door was blown open. 6 figures ran in from the door one after another. As soon as they entered the room, they drew their wands and cast powerful spells at the Death Eaters. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 587, The Tragedy That Sunset Could Not Face. The army looked at the 6 figures that broke in, and a glimmer of hope appeared in their eyes. The 6 people were Barty the Elder, Scrimgeour, Kingsley, Tarks, Moody and Lupin. Among them, Moody and Lupin immediately arrived at the Ministry of Magic Hall by using the Anywhere portal key after receiving the message from Barty the Elder, and then met up with Barty the Elder and the other 4. As early as when Lin and Irina decided to cooperate with Dumbledore and the Order of the Phoenix, the two provided a lot of assistance to the Order of the Phoenix, including the alchemical equipment made by Lin and the Anywhere portal key made by Irina. Damn, they are Death Eaters. Scrimgeour's face was cold, and he waved his wand lightly. 5 silent disarming spells broke through the air in just 1 second, heading straight for Crabbe the Elder and Goyle the Elder, who were planning to attack Andy. Moody did not speak, and when he raised his hand, he instantly cast 6 stunning spells, and his target was also Goyle the Elder and Crabbe the Elder. Compared with Harry and the others who were blocked by the shelves in front of them, Andy, who had gone deep into the enemy camp to attract the attention of the Death Eaters, was in a more dangerous situation. When Scrimgeour and Moody attacked, Goyle and Crabbe were less than 2 meters away from Andy's hiding place. Goyle and Crabbe's magic level was not high, even worse than Ron, who had not even passed the difficult mode illusion test. They subconsciously tried to dodge the attacking red light, but their movement trajectory had already been predicted by the 2 elite auras. 2 disarming spells and 3 stunning spells hit Goyle hard, while another disarming spell and 2 stunning spells hit Crabbe's body. The 2 tall Death Eaters flew backwards and lost consciousness. Seeing that the threat in front of him was lifted, Andy finally leaned out and nodded gratefully to Scrimgeour and Moody, who had supported him in time. Then, Andy turned around and looked at the 2 people who had fallen unconscious on the ground, recalling Len's words when he founded the DA army, and his eyes showed a fierce look. Although the badgers of Hufflepuff represent kindness and justice in the face of the safety of their families, they don't mind transforming into the most powerful badgers among the badgers. Will those Death Eaters break into their homes and kill their families? Exclamation mark. In this case, why not kill them off before they do so? Exclamation mark. Thinking of this, Andy no longer hesitated. He pointed the wand in his hand at the fallen Old Goyle and Old Crabbe and shouted, "Thunder explosion." The orange-red light released a dangerous aura and bombarded the ground between Old Goyle and Old Crabbe. The violent explosion completely swallowed the 2's figures, and the high temperature that exploded completely destroyed their bodies. Seeing this scene, Scrimgeour and Moody were stunned. They had not expected that this seemingly kind student with the Hufflepuff badge on his chest would be so ruthless and do a better job than the adults in killing them all. A touch of admiration flashed across old Barty's eyes. According to the laws of the Ministry of Magic, when faced with Death Eaters who had lost their combat capability, they should arrest them and have them tried by the Ministry of Magic, rather than killing them directly. But there were still so many Death Eaters attacking them with the unforgivable curse in the distance, and the 9 students hiding behind the shelves were still in danger of their lives. This made Scrimgeour dare not stop to educate Andy, but waved his wand non-stop to continue to join the battle. At the same time, in Gringotts, the underground vault, urged by Sirius and the alchemy headset, the 5 people packed up all the treasures in the 5 vaults as quickly as possible and stuffed them into Irina's suitcase. Next, it's time to break through the cave ceiling, remove the restrictions of the protective magic, and then take the Anywhere key to escape from the goblins' pursuit. Lin En looked at the 4 people gathered in front of him and said so. Dumbledore was about to say something, but at this moment, a roar came from the passage they came from, and the goblins arrived. It's too late. Irina frowned and looked at the goblins holding alchemical crossbows and alchemical silver swords. Lin En and I will be responsible for repelling those goblins. Professor Dumbledore, you will attack the cave ceiling. After Irina finished speaking, she immediately waved her wand, and endless snowflakes burst out and flew in the direction of those goblins. Each of these snowflakes that burst out was like a knife, and when they cut through the bodies of those goblins, they left deep scars that could be seen to the bone. In an instant, dozens of screams rang out, and the row of goblins running in the front all fell to the ground, and were trampled by the goblins that followed behind. The eyes of these goblins were only focused on the robbed vaults and the desire to take back the treasures. This made them not care about the lives of their companions at all, and they only waved their most powerful weapons at the robbers. Shoot! A goblin wrapped in mithril armor shouted loudly, and more than 50 goblins beside him aimed their alchemical crossbows at Lin En and Irina, and pulled the trigger. Facing the alchemical crossbow arrows flying all over the sky, Lin En and Irina did not dodge or evade, but instead released more spells to knock down the goblins holding melee weapons rushing towards them. Swish! The little curled winged demon jumped down from the head of the bird snake Ruai, and it stretched its body as much as possible, turning into a starry purple curtain covering the entire space, intercepting all the crossbow arrows attacking its master. The bird snake Ruai cried angrily, moving its huge body and sweeping its tail towards the goblins, instantly sweeping away more than 20 goblins in the front. Try this. Irina sneered, throwing dozens of cabbage-like things with both hands, landing in front of the goblins. Looking at these cabbage-like things, the goblins all showed horror and retreated to the back, but more goblins who were rushing towards them with howling in the back. Under their desperate looks, they continued to push forward. Those cabbage-like things showed their sharp fangs, and they actually jumped up from the ground and pounced on the goblins closest to them. Damn it, you stupid things, don't push me. This is Chinese biting cabbage. Don't force it. The color is wrong. This is a mutated Chinese biting cabbage. Damn, it can bite our mithril armor into pieces. Ah. Curses and screams rang out among these goblins. Broken limbs and arms fell to the ground, and the goblins' blood merged into a small river on the ground, telling the tragedy that the setting sun could not look directly at. Chapter 588 Aura, come out and clean up the mess. Behind the huge body of the bird snake, Dumbledore pointed his wand at the cave above his head. A white beam of light broke through the air from the tip of his wand and landed on the stone wall on the top of the cave. This was a silent vanishing spell. Under the effect of the vanishing spell, the rock wall on the top of the cave continued to turn into nothingness. Green and Newt also released the vanishing spell to speed up the digging of the cave top. It seemed that they felt that Lin En and others were about to escape. The rhythm of the goblins' attack became more and more crazy. They rushed over like moths to a flame with various melee alchemical weapons in their hands. Purple flames ignited in the cave, and the high temperature carried by the purple sky fire instantly evaporated more than a dozen goblins. Finally here, reload quickly. I want to see those damn robbers go to hell. At this moment, a roar came from the passage in the distance, attracting the attention of Lin En and Irina. After seeing the scene in the passage, Lin En and Irina's faces changed drastically. I saw more than a dozen fairies pushing 3 alchemical red cannons out, and the 3 alchemical red cannons were all aimed at Lin En and Irina. You know, the power of the alchemical shells after 1 alchemical red cannon is enough to kill a Demon King level wizard, let alone 3 alchemical red cannons? Exclamation mark. Those fairies are really crazy. Lin En cursed in his heart. If the 3 alchemical red cannons really fired at the same time, then in such a small space in this underground vault, regardless of Lin En and Irina and others, at least all the fairies who chased here would be blown to death. It seems that the robbery of the 5 vaults in the deepest part of the underground vault has made these fairies completely want to fight to the death. Lin En immediately mobilized all the purple myrtle sky fire around him and rushed towards the direction of the 3 alchemical red cannons regardless of everything, trying to destroy them. But these fairies did the same thing, letting hundreds of fairies holding alchemical silver shields stand in front, using the continuously extended energy shields to block the attack of the purple starfire and escort the fairies in the back who were loading ammunition. Seeing that his attack was blocked, Lin En gritted his teeth and said, "Do you think I can't do anything to you? Perhaps the purple starfire, which can kill the Demon King level wizard in an instant, cannot break through the defense line that these fairies have built up with a large number of alchemical silver shields and lives in a short time. But magic and alchemy are always mutually reinforcing and restraining. There is always magic that can restrain the defense of the energy shield extended by these alchemical silver shields. For example, the Avada Kedavra curse that can ignore all magical defenses. Avada Kedavra." Lin En's eyes were full of murderous intent. He growled and pointed his wand at a fairy holding an alchemical shell and was about to load it into the alchemical red cannon. The dark green beam of light cut through the air like lightning in the dark night, fiercely bombarding the goblin who was loading the shells, dyeing his whole body green. The goblin was dead. But no goblin cared about the death of this companion. In the eyes of the goblins, gold coins were more important than their lives, and the robbery of the 5 vaults had completely made them lose their minds. More goblins rushed up to take over the dead goblins and complete the process of loading the shells. Irina frowned and raised her wand as well. Avada Kedavra. Another dark green light flew out and killed the second goblin. However, such killing was a drop in the bucket in front of the hundreds of goblins. Perhaps they could use the Avada Kedavra spell to delay the progress of the goblins loading the shells, but how long could it delay? Exclamation mark. 1 second? Or 2 seconds? Exclamation mark. Even with the pure heart pendant, Lin En and Irina did not dare to use the unforgivable curse without restraint. These 2 consecutive attacks of the killing curse were already their limit. In less than a minute, the 3 alchemical red cannons were all loaded. A breathtaking breath spread from the 3 alchemical red cannons. Even Dumbledore and the other 2 who were digging the top of the cave in the back felt a little palpitation. Prepare to evacuate. Lin En roared. He suddenly threw out a condensed and substantial forbidden magic fire, which turned into a black and red wall several meters behind everyone, using the forbidden magic power to resist the spread of the explosion as much as possible. Irina quickly recovered the mutant Chinese biting cabbage on the ground, commanded the bird snake Ruai to get into the suitcase, and then stuffed the suitcase into her pocket where she had cast the traceless extension spell. Without the obstruction of the bird snake Ruai's huge body, Dumbledore, Green and Newt all saw the 3 alchemical red cannons ready to go. Their eyelids twitched wildly, and they all used all their strength to output the vanishing spell in their hands. The white light blooming in the underground vault seemed to be brighter, just like the day that replaced the night. The powerful vanishing spell that broke out dug through the top of the underground vault at the fastest speed. The setting sun outside shone on this narrow ground through the passage dug by the vanishing spell, just like the beam of light before the curtain fell. After the passage from the underground vault to the outside world was opened, Phoenix Forks immediately appeared at the entrance of the cave. It drilled in from the entrance of the cave, and after flying out of the cave with Dumbledore, Green and Newt, it took the 3 of them and turned into a beam of fire and disappeared in the air. The little curled winged demon extended its body again, and it carried Lin En and Irina up and flew through the entrance of the cave at the fastest speed, flying into the soft and warm sunset. At this moment, the 3 alchemical red cannons opened fire in the underground vault. After seeing that all the robbers had fled, the goblins wanted to stop the alchemical red cannons from firing, but it was too late. Endless power exploded in the underground vault, and the violent explosion shook the entire Diagon Alley. Thousands of wizards in Diagon Alley fell to the ground under the violent vibration. They looked around in horror, not knowing where the violent vibration came from. The explosion of these 3 alchemical shells actually set off a small earthquake in Diagon Alley. At this time, dozens of figures poured into Diagon Alley. They all received Scrimgeour's order and rushed from the fireplace of the leaky cauldron to the auras in Diagon Alley. These auras were also shocked by the shaking of the ground. They understood that something terrible must have happened in Gringotts, so that they could feel the residual power of the magic. As soon as they arrived at the entrance of Diagon Alley, broomsticks appeared in the hands of these auras. They quickly turned over and rode on the brooms, and then flew towards Gringotts at the fastest speed. However, when they arrived above Gringotts, they found that the once magnificent Gringotts was now pierced with a hole with a diameter of more than 10 meters. Lin and Irina flew out of the hole with the help of the little curled winged demon. Looking at the dozens of auras around him who were looking at him with incredible eyes, Lin laughed wildly and shouted, "Auras, come out and clean the floor." Before Lin's voice fell, the 2 of them and the little curled winged demon disappeared in full view of the public with the lighting of white light. Please give me rewards and monthly tickets. Chapter 589. The performance begins. They are too arrogant, aren't they? An aura said hesitantly. Another aura signaled him to shut up, and then whispered, "Be careful with your words. Fudge has been dismissed, and our Minister Crouch's attitude towards Mr. Dumbledore and Mr. Rao is still quite ambiguous. It's better to say less of such things that are not conducive to unity." The aura was stunned and said, "Then what should we do next? What else can we do?" The other party shrugged. "Count the casualties in Gringotts. Calculate the data of property losses. Well, according to Mr. Rowe, it's just to clean up for them. Number 12 Grimmauld Place. Dumbledore, Green and Newt appeared in the hall with forks as the fire lit up, while Lin and Irina fell to the ground with the white light. Sirius looked at everyone anxiously, and he wanted to go to the Ministry of Magic to support Harry immediately. Dumbledore smiled and said to Green and Newt, "Thank you for your help." Newt waved his hand and said a little embarrassedly, "No need to be so, Professor Dumbledore, I didn't do anything. Mr. Green contributed the most. Whether it was tactical equipment or cracking the alchemy array, it was all Mr. Green who was responsible for it." Green accepted Dumbledore's thanks calmly and said with a smile, "Of course I will not be absent from this performance planned by Lin. Now that the performance is over, it's time for me to return to France." As he said that, Green took out a portkey from his pocket. Just as Green was about to leave with the portkey, he suddenly thought of something. He looked at Lin, blinked, and said, "By the way, your two friends have been studying with me during this period. I'm sure they will surprise you in the summer vacation soon." Hearing this, Lin laughed dumbly. It seems that Fred and George have successfully been accepted by Green, and they must have gained a lot during the time they have been studying with Green. You know, except for the first year when Green was still teaching in Hogwarts Castle, Lin could ask Green about alchemy at any time. In the next 5 years, Lin could only learn alchemy from Green during the summer vacation. The Weir Light Winds left Hogwarts Castle shortly after the Christmas vacation and went to France to join Green. It seems that the time Fred and George spent studying with Green may not be much less than that of Lin. After Lin and Irina said goodbye to their teachers respectively, Green and Newt took the lead and left with the portkey. Then, it's time to rush to the Ministry of Magic. Dumbledore looked at Lin, Irina and Sirius. He seemed to have thought of something and said, "But I won't go this time." Hearing Dumbledore's words, the three of them were stunned. Lin and Irina remembered something. They nodded to Dumbledore, but Sirius asked anxiously, "Why? Dumbledore? Harry and the others are dealing with so many Death Eaters, and they may even meet Voldemort. How can you not go?" Dumbledore said, "I have another thing to do. That is a clue about another Horcrux in my hand. As for Voldemort, don't forget, Lin is also a Demon King level wizard, isn't he?" It is true that Dumbledore intends to pursue the clue of another Horcrux, but it is not as urgent as Dumbledore said. Dumbledore did this just to leave this battle to Lin and Irina. If Lin and Dumbledore, two Demon King level wizards, showed up, then Voldemort in the dark would definitely not take action. Voldemort is not so arrogant that he thinks he can kill Harry under the protection of two Demon King level wizards. But if Lin was the only demon level wizard present, Voldemort would not be afraid. After all, in Voldemort's view, Lin, a new demon level wizard, could not be his opponent at all. The reason why he lost in the Battle of Little Hangleton Village was that Lin used emotions as fuel and burst out with power that did not belong to him. When Voldemort appeared, Irina could start the last step of her promotion to a demon level wizard. In the real battle between life and death, they could not find a better opponent than Voldemort. Horcrux. Okay, Lin, Irina, let's go. After learning that Dumbledore was going to look for the Horcrux, Sirius finally nodded. He looked at Lin and Irina and said. Irina took out a random door key, the destination of which was outside the 10th courtroom. Lin and Irina did not know the specific coordinates of the Department of Mysteries, and the closest to the Department of Mysteries in the Ministry of Magic was the 10th courtroom on the same floor. The white light brought the three to the 10th courtroom. They walked up the stairs quickly, passed through several black doors of the Department of Mysteries, and came to the room where the battle took place. Time went back to 10 minutes ago. The addition of 6 people including Old Barty reversed the desperate situation of Harry and others. They pushed forward like a sharp blade, separating all the Death Eaters in front of them. Old Barty and the other 6 people kept casting extremely lethal magic, forcing the Death Eaters to retreat to both sides, while they quickly passed through the Death Eaters and came to the front of the bunker where Harry and others were. Professor Lupin. Professor Moody. Neville shouted. Irving nodded to Old Barty and said, "Congratulations, and thank you." In this way, Old Barty and the other 6 people successfully joined the 10 people of the DA army. They also organized an effective counterattack, bombarding the Death Eaters with spells one after another. Although there were more than 30 Death Eaters in this room, and the Ministry of Magic, the Order of the Phoenix and the DA had less than half the number of the other side. The wizards of the Ministry of Magic, the Order of the Phoenix and the DA were all elite, and most of them had reached, or even exceeded the level of elite auras. Even Ron, who had the worst magic level, had the same power as an aura. The spells that kept intersecting in the air were like a wonderful fireworks show. This performance, which was gradually turning into a evenly matched performance, also kicked off with the blooming of scarlet blood in the sonata of wailing music. Chapter 590, Blood blooms and Voldemort appears. The battle was so fierce, hundreds of beams of light intersected in the air, and shot at the distant enemy with the force of thunder. In just 3 minutes, both sides suffered casualties. First, Lupin was hit by a Cruciatus curse from McNeil, and then he was hit by a stunning curse from Rookwood, while his body was convulsing. He flew backwards and hit the wall several meters away, fainting. Then Kingsley was unable to dodge and fell into the encirclement of 8 Death Eaters. 4 Avada Kedavra curses, 2 Cruciatus curses and a stunning curse were cast at Kingsley and all his retreat routes at the same time. Compared with the Avada Kedavra curse and the Cruciatus curse, the stunning curse undoubtedly caused the least damage to wizards. Kingsley knew that the stunning curse was behind him to the left, but he had to make up his mind and retreat to the left. The stunning curse hit him and knocked him out. Fortunately, Irving used the zombie floating spell to drag the unconscious Kingsley behind him in time. Otherwise the green light that followed the Death Eaters would probably have killed Kingsley. The third person to fall was Neville. He saw Luna being besieged by 6 Death Eaters not far away. He stepped forward without hesitation and blocked the 6 stunning curses and 2 crushing curses that attacked Luna before she was knocked down. Neville's sturdy body flew out on the spot, and the crushing curse that hit his back also blew his back into a bloody mess, and even the broken bones inside could be seen. The Death Eater camp also suffered a lot of casualties. Scrimgeour and Moody were both auras, and their magic level was also the elite among the elites among the auras. What's more, they were professional counterparts in catching Death Eaters. The 2 aura office directors and the retired elite aura cast disarming spells and stunning spells, knocking out the Death Eaters who were unable to dodge. Tonks also achieved good results. Although she was a new aura, she had also received training in arresting Death Eaters. The wand in her hand was wielded vigorously. Old Barty was like a poisonous snake hiding in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to move. If he didn't make a move, it would be fine. Once he made a move, it would be an Avada Kedavra curse that would directly kill the enemy. Although the number of Death Eaters who lost their combat effectiveness was the least under Old Barty's attack, those Death Eaters who were hit by Old Barty's attack lost their combat effectiveness and their lives. The most surprising thing was that the one who achieved the greatest results in this war was not anyone from the Ministry of Magic or the Order of the Phoenix, but these students of the DA Army. Under Lin's training, the members of the DA Army hated the Death Eaters, and they were merciless when attacking these Death Eaters. Whether it was Lupin and Tonks from the Order of the Phoenix, or Barty, Moody, and Scrimgeour from the Ministry of Magic, the spells they used to attack the Death Eaters were mainly control spells such as the disarming spell and the stunning spell. But the DA Army was different. As soon as they got the chance, they cast a series of Divine Edge shadowless spells, and beautiful blood flowers bloomed in the Death Eater camp. Ginny and Andy waved their wands with ferocious faces, and grey-white beams and orange-red beams as thick as arms were cast. Ginny's crushing spell and Andy's explosive spell seemed to have surpassed the power of elite auras, while the Ministry of Magic, the Order of the Phoenix, and the DA Army lost 3 people. The Death Eater camp had already lost 16 people, and among these 16 Death Eaters, 10 of them were killed by the DA Army. Seeing that the situation was about to move towards victory, the appearance of a figure shattered everyone's dream of annihilating the Death Eaters. "You know who?" Scrimgeour exclaimed, his eyes fixed on the black-robed figure that appeared in the center of the prophecy hall. The tall and thin figure, wearing a black hood, with a terrifying snake-like face that was pale and haggard, and a pair of slender red eyes. Wasn't that the image of Voldemort in the Battle of Little Hangleton Village published in the Daily Prophet? Exclamation mark. After seeing Voldemort's appearance, all the DA Army members were stunned, but none of them showed fear, but instead showed hatred and high fighting spirit. "Master!" The remaining 20 or so Death Eaters knelt down to Voldemort, and they shouted loudly, Waste, a bunch of waste. Voldemort's scarlet snake eyes swept over the Death Eaters. Nearly 40 people, but they can't even beat some students. And the prophecy crystal ball was destroyed. What use do I have for you? Huh. Voldemort's cold tone made all the Death Eaters shudder, and they lowered their heads like quails, not daring to answer. Voldemort no longer paid attention to the Death Eaters kneeling on the ground, but cast his eyes on Harry behind Moody. Voldemort's tone became colder and full of murderous intent. So, you destroyed my prophecy crystal ball? Well, I have nothing to say to you, Potter. You have annoyed me again and again. Avada Kedavra. The green light, carrying the momentum of annihilation, broke through the air for 100 meters and went straight to Harry. No one dared to underestimate this killing curse. Looking at the green light coming towards him, Harry's mind was blank, and he could not make any resistance. It was Voldemort who locked Harry's aura with his own Demon King level power, making Harry unable to dodge or think. Thunderstorm. Seeing that Harry was about to be killed by Voldemort, Irving gritted his teeth and waved his wand. The huge magic power was transformed into the purest thunder in an instant. After being compressed thousands of times, it turned into a fist-sized thunderball and flew out, blocking Harry. The dark green killing curse hit the thunderball, quickly wearing it away. No matter how powerful Irving's thunder power was, it was so small and insignificant in front of the Demon King level wizard. This thunderball, which concentrated a huge amount of thunder power, was like a drop in the bucket in front of this killing light, and was completely annihilated in just a second. Just when the dark green light was about to take Harry's life, the black and red flames turned into a substantial wall and suddenly blocked Harry's eyes. The forbidden magic power, which was also compressed thousands of times, wrapped the sharp edge of the killing curse, consuming the power of the killing curse bit by bit. Lin. Irving's eyes lit up and looked at the black door. Lin, Irina and Sirius rushed in from outside the black door, and the forbidden magic fire that blocked the Demon King level killing curse was released by Lin. Chapter 591 Refracting and Absorbing the Killing Curse. The Devil Level Ice Magic. Row. Seeing that his attack was blocked, Voldemort turned his head and roared. Voldemort's scarlet snake pupils seemed to become even redder, and his eyes looking at Lin En were full of endless murderous intent. More than a decade ago, old Rao betrayed him and stole his Horcrux. A year ago, this damn Rao made him lose face in the Battle of Little Hangleton Village. And now, this damn Rao stopped him again, so that his killing curse could not kill Harry, his old enemy. All of this made Voldemort's hatred for Lin En reach the extreme. Avada Kedavra. Voldemort roared, and a green beam of light as thick as an adult's thigh crossed a distance of hundreds of meters in an instant, and went straight to Lin En. Lin En's face was grim. He swung the wand in his hand, and the black and red forbidden magic fire was across him, constantly dissipating the power of the killing curse. Snap. At the moment when the dark green beam collided with the black and red wall of fire, the dark green beam actually burst into hundreds of tiny dark green lightning, bypassing the forbidden magic fire, and continuing to attack Lin En. This is Voldemort's Avada lightning chain. Lin En quickly waved the wand in his hand, and fist-sized forbidden magic fires ignited out of thin air, accurately intercepting each branch of the Avada lightning chain. Just when Voldemort was about to continue attacking Lin En, Irina took action. Her ice blue eyes seemed to become even colder. When she raised her left hand slightly, thousands of purple myrtle cold stars broke through the air and swept towards Voldemort like a storm. Stay alert, Irina. If you need help, feel free to ask me for help. Remember, your safety is more important than anything else. Lin En whispered. Hearing Lin En's words, Irina's cold eyes suddenly flashed with a soft color. She turned her head slightly and patted her right arm gently, indicating that Lin En should rest assured. Before the operation to rob Gringotts began, Lin En took off the demon god's authority from his body and let Irina wear it on her right arm. As a Demon King level wizard, Lin En already possessed almost infinite magic power, which made him not have to worry about losing the ability to fight due to the exhaustion of magic power. Therefore, instead of keeping the demon god's authority and all chemical equipment that has become dispensable to him on himself, it is better to let Irina, who needs more magic power, wear it. The endless magic power flows into Irina's body along with the demon god's authority. With the magic stone providing magic power for Irina, she no longer needs to consider the consumption of her own magic power when casting magic. Is this ice magic that is infinitely close to the level of the Demon King? Voldemort waved his wand and blocked the purple and cold stars flying all over the sky, his eyes uncertain Avada Kedavra. The dark green beam of light broke through the air again, but this time, there was no Lin En to block the power of the killing curse for her. Irina looked at the dark green light that was approaching her with a serious face. She did not dodge, but whispered a few obscure syllables, and waved her wand in an extremely strange posture. I saw an ice blue snowflake suddenly blooming in front of her chest, and the ice blue light lit up. This snowflake was constantly extending, and turned into a sharp ice armor, covering Irina's chest. Then, hundreds of ice blue snowflakes extended on the surface of Irina's body. These snowflakes that extended into ice armor were connected together, and turned into a piece of ice chainmail, tightly fitting Irina's body. Ice armor? No, it seems to be more than that. Lin En looked at the ice chainmail that was so smooth that every snowflake seemed to have no friction, and began to think. The obscure syllables seemed to turn into a kind of wonderful power, blending into the surface of the ice chainmail, making every snowflake that made up the chainmail shine like a mirror with an ice blue light. Soon, the green light directly hit Irina's chest, but the ice chainmail that covered Irina's body, but at this moment, it burst out with endless light. The huge ice power was continuously released and turned into a part of the ice chainmail. The exploding ice blue light seemed to make the mirror-like snowflakes smoother again. How is it possible? Under Voldemort's incredible gaze, the Demon King level killing curse was refracted by the mirror-like snowflakes, and more than 90% of its power was refracted in another direction. The remaining less than 10% of the power was absorbed by one of the snowflakes under the desperate suppression of the ice power. Yes, absorbed. This death curse, which symbolizes death, was actually absorbed by an ice blue snowflake. The snowflake that absorbed the faint green light faintly revealed a green light, like a green gem. Beautiful, but deadly. Irina held the snowflake that absorbed the death curse in the ice chainmail with her left hand, took it off, and threw it into the distance. The snowflake emitting green light flew several meters away. This ice power, which was concentrated hundreds of times, could no longer suppress the power of the demon level death curse. The snowflake that absorbed the death curse exploded and dissipated into the air with the green light. At the same time, Irina had condensed new snowflakes and melted them into the ice chainmail. The obscure syllables sounded from her mouth again, and the ice chainmail in front of her seemed to shine a little brighter. In the distance, old Barty and the others were all surprised. They could not imagine that Irina, who had not yet been promoted to the level of a Demon King, could refract the killing curse of Voldemort, who was a Demon King. Refracting Voldemort's killing curse. Even my forbidden magic fire cannot do it. It seems that Irina's ice magic has truly reached the level of a Demon King. Lin En watched all this thoughtfully. In this round of confrontation, everything Irina showed that her ice magic had reached the level of a Demon King, but she herself had not yet been promoted to the level of a Demon King. It seemed that, as long as Irina could successfully end this battle, no matter what the outcome of this battle was, she would be able to successfully advance to the level of a Demon King. Frozen judgment. Irina pulled her left hand behind her, and the ice crystal spear appeared in her hand. She swung the ice crystal spear in her hand violently. Chapter 592 Irina advances to Demon King level wizard. The ice crystal spear was a weapon that Lin En had made for Irina 2 years ago. During these 2 years, Lin En had continuously used his improved alchemy skills to improve the ice crystal spear. The ice blue spear was emitting a bone-chilling chill all the time, and the extremely sharp spear tip would occasionally flash with mysterious runes. This weapon, which most wizards could not hold for a long time, was so easy to wield in Irina's hands. Endless magic power flowed into Irina's body through the power of the demon god, and then quickly transformed into vast ice power under Irina's control, pouring into the ice crystal spear in her hand. Under the injection of this large-scale ice power, the ice crystal spear actually began to tremble slightly. The surging ice power was enough to make Voldemort, who was 100 meters away, feel a little palpitation. The obscure notes came out of Irina's mouth again. As Irina waved the ice crystal spear, the momentum of the ice crystal spear seemed to increase several times. Swish. Irina's figure and the ice crystal spear in her hand turned into an ice blue stream of light and arrived in front of Voldemort in an instant. Irina looked at Voldemort, who was stunned, and did not hide her killing intention. She swung the ice crystal spear in her hand with all her strength, and stabbed Voldemort's chest. Puff! The sound of flesh being pierced rang out, and the spear tip, which was enchanted by countless alchemical arrays, pierced Voldemort's chest without any hindrance. Voldemort gritted his teeth, and his figure flashed. Before the ice crystal spear pierced his heart, he apparated behind Irina. But Irina seemed to have predicted it. As soon as Voldemort's figure condensed behind Irina, the ice crystal spear with an icy blue light swept across and narrowly passed by Voldemort's throat. Swish, swish, swish. Voldemort apparated again and again, but every time he appeared at the foothold of the apparition, a spear with surging ice power would sweep across, forcing him to continue to apparate to avoid it. After dozens of apparitions, Voldemort finally realized that dodging blindly was not a solution. He gritted his teeth, waved his wand and cast a demon-level armor charm, trying to block the ice crystal spear that was stabbing straight at him. The condensed armor charm blocked him in front of him, and Voldemort did not think that Irina's ice crystal spear could break his armor charm. After all, he was a Demon King level wizard, while Irina had not yet reached the Demon King level. Perhaps Irina's attainments in ice magic had reached the Demon King level, but her own magic level was ultimately her weakness. Unfortunately, Voldemort had calculated everything, but he had missed out on this ice crystal spear, which was made by Lin En himself, and had undergone many improvemiments. Irina's own strength alone might not be able to break Voldemort's armor spell, but with Lin En's alchemy, that might not be the case. Hundreds of superimposed alchemical arrays were simultaneously driven by Irina's ice power, turning into infinite power that exploded at the tip of the ice crystal spear along with the ice power. The entire prophecy hall was reflected in an icy blue color by the blooming icy power. Under everyone's unbelievable gaze, the ice crystal spear in Irina's hand was like tearing a piece of parchment, almost without any hindrance, piercing Voldemort's armor spell, and piercing Voldemort's abdomen. Swish. Voldemort's figure suddenly apparated to dozens of meters away. A trace of scarlet appeared at the corner of his mouth, and his left hand covered his abdomen, that was pierced with a huge blood hole. He looked at Irina with a look full of violent murderous intent and hatred. When has Voldemort ever fought such a frustrating fight? Exclamation mark. In another corner of the prophecy hall, Harry and other members of the DA army, Sirius and other members of the Order of the Phoenix, and Old Barty and other members of the Ministry of Magic, all opened their mouths wide after seeing this scene. In their impression, the only ones who could beat Voldemort so badly in a magic duel were probably Lin En, who was promoted to the Demon King level wizard in the Battle of Little Hangleton Village, and Dumbledore. Oh no, even Dumbledore had never beaten Voldemort so badly. But now, Irina, who has not yet been promoted to the Demon King level wizard, has beaten this old Demon King level wizard of Voldemort without any chance to fight back. Even compared with Lin En, who showed off his skills in the sky over Little Hangleton Village a year ago, this is even better. Irina did not stop her offensive. She kept waving the ice crystal spear in her hand, releasing the ice power that contained endless destructive power. The purple stars flashing with purple light were dancing in this prophecy hall, and from time to time, taking advantage of Voldemort's unpreparedness, adding a new blood mark on his body. Arsehole. Avada Kedavra. Avada Kedavra. Avada Kedavra. Under Irina's stormy attack, Voldemort seemed to be crazy. His eyes were bloodshot, and he no longer released the iron armor curse for defense. Instead, he took the method of exchanging injuries for lives, and frantically cast the powerful Avada Kedavra curse, intending to strangle the terrible little witch in the cradle as quickly as possible. He would never allow a terrible little witch like Irina to follow Rawls' path again, and become a Demon King level wizard. But Voldemort's calculations obviously failed. Irina's face was as cold as frost. She calmly waved the ice crystal spear in her hand, but she did not neglect to avoid Voldemort's counterattack. Whether it was the ordinary Avada Kedavra curse or Voldemort's exclusive Avada lightning chain, they were easily avoided by Irina's icy power and her swift dodge like a stream of light. Voldemort's 1,000 miles pursuit curse would also be refracted or absorbed by Irina's icy chainmail, and could not really hit Irina's most vulnerable body. In the continuous attacks, the icy power surrounding Irina became more and more intense, and the ice blow light and the spreading cold air from the icy chainmail became more and more dazzling and piercing. As a Demon King level wizard, Lin En could clearly feel that Irina's momentum was gradually growing as she waved the ice crystal spear in her hand again and again. Voldemort naturally noticed this, and he was angry and unbelievable to find that Irina was actually using this battle with him to complete a ritual of promotion to a Demon King level wizard. The temperature in the prophecy hall was constantly dropping from 0 degrees to -10 degrees, -20 degrees, -30 degrees. The magic power and ice power released by Irina seemed to be sublimated. The ice power that should have been invisible actually condensed into an ice-like entity out of thin air. Everything within a 10-meter radius of her seemed to be frozen by an invisible force. Even the air was frozen in place, and nothing could escape from this extreme cold. From this moment on, Irina was promoted to a Demon King level wizard. Chapter 593, Standing in the Flames, Judging the Sinners. After Irina's magic power was sublimated, and she became a Demon King level wizard, the magic power that continuously provided her with magic power gradually stopped working. But the magic power released by Irina did not decrease at all, but was upgraded to a higher level. More and more magic power surrounded her like a spring. After she became a Demon King, she already had almost infinite magic power. She no longer needed the assistance of the magic power. First it was that damned roll, and then it was you. Lol. What do you think of me? A stepping stone. Looking at Irina, who had been promoted to a Demon King level wizard, Voldemort roared angrily. More than a decade ago, when Voldemort had not yet fallen, the entire British magic world had to succumb to his wand. Countless wizards worshipped him, and those dirty muggle-borns trembled under his power, and did not dare to overstep their boundaries. But what about now? Exclamation mark. First, it was Lin Rao in the Battle of Little Hangleton Village, and then Irina Lowell in front of him. They never regarded themselves as unbeatable enemies, but instead challenged themselves, the Dark Lord who once brought darkness to the British magic world, with the power of ordinary wizards again and again. If it were just this, Voldemort would not be so angry, but in the process of challenging himself, these two little wizards actually advanced to the level of Demon Lord wizards in the battle. Isn't this just using him as a stepping stone? Exclamation mark. Voldemort only felt that he was seriously insulted. Blood sacrifice. Dark mark. The corpse reappears. Voldemort roared, and he stabbed his wand into his chest fiercely. Strands of blood were drawn out by the wand, and a green light burst out in the sky above the prophecy hall. Seeing this scene, whether it was Lin and others in the distance, or Irina who was fighting with Voldemort, they all looked solemn. Bloody dark mark. This trick again. Kill Harry Potter. Voldemort roared loudly, his wounds gradually healed under the illumination of the bloody dark mark. Crucio. The bloody dark mark projected over the prophecy hall, like the setting sun at dusk, dyed everyone's face blood red. Compared with the one that bloomed over Little Hangleton Village a year ago, this bloody dark mark seemed to be much stronger. Under the cover of the bloody dark mark, Harry and others felt as if they were covered with a layer of blood film, sticky, making their movements much slower. Not only that, they also felt that their eyelids were getting heavier and heavier, and it was getting harder and harder to concentrate. Damn it, this bloody dark mark will affect our body and mind. Irving cursed inwardly, and he raised his hand and cast a universal protection spell. Unfortunately, the universal protection spell can resist the attack of the spell, but it cannot block the shining of the blood light. Dozens of meters away, those Death Eaters with the dark mark on their arms became much more excited under the illumination of the bloody dark mark. There seemed to be some blood in the eyes of those Death Eaters, making them look more bloodthirsty and fearless. Cruciatus Curse and Avada Kedavra Curse were fired from the hands of those Death Eaters, shooting towards the crowd. Scrimgeour growled, "Protect the students." As Scrimgeour's voice fell, Moody, Tonks and Kingsley, who had awakened, waved their wands and cast lethal spells at those Death Eaters. Old Barty and Lupin, who had awakened, waved their wands vigorously, pulled the wooden frames that were broken into pieces in the distance with the levitation charm, and hit the green light with force to intercept it. Soul out of the body. Sirius, who was standing not far from Lin, waited for an opportunity to attack. He used the Imperious Curse to control a Death Eater, and then manipulated the Death Eater to cast a series of killing curses at his companions, until those companions discovered this traitor, and killed him with the killing curse. No. Irving cast a palm thunder at McNeil, but the other party dodged it sideways. I can't hold on. This bloody dark mark will affect our judgment. It's easy for them to dodge our spells. The number of the three forces of the Ministry of Magic, the Order of the Phoenix and the DAME is already at a disadvantage, and the bloody dark mark weakens them and strengthens the Death Eaters, but once again widens the gap between the two camps, with one side gaining and the other losing. The possibility of everyone winning is infinitely close to zero. Have you forgotten someone? A plain voice sounded, and a figure suddenly appeared in front of Harry and others, scaring everyone to quickly raise their wands and aim at the figure. However, after seeing the owner of the figure that apparated, they finally breathed a sigh of relief and put down their wands. Some people completely relaxed, no longer worried about the Death Eaters in the distance, and sat down on the ground to rest. Lin, I almost forgot you were here too. Irving wiped the sweat from his forehead and smiled bitterly. In the previous battle, Irving almost drained all the magic power in his body. He had overdrawn his body and forced himself to support the battle just now. Lin turned around and looked at the 10 DAME members who were all a little exhausted. He said softly, "You did a good job. Next, leave it to me." As Lin's voice fell, purple flames suddenly ignited and spread out at a lightning speed, turning into a huge line of fire, wrapping all the wizards on his side. Under Lin's control, these purple flames would not hurt them at all, but instead intercepted all the spells attacking them. As for the Avada Kedavra curse that ignored energy defense, it was accurately intercepted by the groups of forbidden magic fire that ignited out of thin air. Even though these Death Eaters, strengthened by the bloody dark mark, had a magic level equivalent to that of elite auras, as long as they had not reached the level of Demon Lord, they were as vulnerable as ants in front of Lin. The power of the Avada Kedavra curse they cast was not even as strong as the green lightning from Voldemort's Avada lightning chain. More and more purple sky fires ignited in the prophecy hall and gradually spread towards the remaining 20 or so Death Eaters. The scorching heat distorted the air and used the distorted air to distort the bloodlight that should have shone on these Death Eaters. Standing in the flames, Lin was like the god who controlled the world's fire and imposed the most severe judgment on those sinners who disrespected heaven and earth. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 594 Under the Brilliant Starry Sky. On the other side of the Hall of Prophecy, Voldemort seemed to have become even more powerful under the illumination of the bloody dark mark. He raised his hand, and a shield condensed into a solid object blocked the ice crystal spear stabbed by Irina. A puff of black smoke burst out from his palm, following the ice crystal spear stabbed on the shield, and swept towards Irina. Irina frowned slightly. She wanted to withdraw her ice crystal spear, but she felt a resistance. The black smoke was like a demon with bared fangs and claws, grabbing her ice crystal spear, and wanted to catch her. But at this moment, endless purple bloomed from the surface of the ice crystal spear. Irina actually injected the Zui Hangsing into the ice crystal spear in her hand in the form of energy, and it exploded on its surface, shattering the black smoke that was like a thorn in the bone. The tip of the ice crystal spear flashed a touch of purple. As Irina waved the ice crystal spear in her hand towards Voldemort, the tip of the spear actually drew a perfect semicircle in the air, and endless frost broke through the air, carrying a touch of purple, and attacking Voldemort several meters away. The frost in the sky was like a purple moon, carrying a fatal beauty. Feeling the huge power contained in the purple moon, Voldemort was unwilling to take it head on, but apparated and retreated to the back. But at this moment, Irina pointed her wand lightly at the ground. In an instant, all of Voldemort's retreat routes were covered by endless ice. Half of the prophecy hall, which was as big as 3 or 4 basketball courts, was covered by endless flames, while the other half was like a world of ice and snow, full of frost. Endless ice rose from the ground, turning into narrow and long glaciers, stabbing directly at Voldemort who was apparating in the air. With the purple moon in front and the glaciers behind, Voldemort seemed to have no way to retreat at this moment. Let this moon shine through all rivers. A cold voice sounded, and the temperature around Voldemort instantly broke through -100 degrees. The endless frost covered Voldemort's body, making him unable to move. Looking at this desperate scene, Voldemort was uncertain, and he opened his mouth and spit out a ball of fiend fire. Avada Kedavra is the black magic that Voldemort is best at, and the second is fiend fire. However, Voldemort's fiend fire seemed to have become a puppet army that could defect at any time in front of Lin En. The fiend fire that devoured everything would turn around and attack him, the master who released the fiend fire under Lin En's control. This made Voldemort dare not use fiend fire to fight when facing Lin En. But now, it was not Lin En who was fighting Voldemort, but Irina who was good at ice magic. Lin En, who was bullying those minions in the distance, seemed to have no intention of taking action. This made Voldemort no longer care about Lin En in the distance, and released the fiend fire that devoured everything. The red and black flames ignited, facing the purple moon, that broke through the air. At the moment when the two came into contact, the fierce fire shone brightly, and actually wrapped the purple moon inside, constantly devouring the energy in the purple moon, to strengthen its own power. Seeing this scene, Irina frowned again. Can the demon level fierce fire even devour this purple moon? Exclamation mark. Just when Irina thought that the purple moon she had cut out with all her strength was about to be devoured by the fierce fire released by Voldemort, a golden light burst out from the red and black fierce fire. The purple moon light suddenly bloomed with a purple gold light, like a high god, giving people a feeling of holiness and inviolability. The purple gold moonlight reduced the temperature around it by half again, and even the red and black fierce fire was frozen in place by this extremely low temperature. Yes, this terrifying low temperature can even freeze the fierce fire. The purple gold moonlight flashed a sharp color, and instantly cut Voldemort's body in half. The purple gold light burst out, and it actually detonated all the hundreds of glaciers behind it. Endless ice slag exploded and pierced Voldemort's body with holes. Seeing the results of the purple gold moonlight, even Irina herself covered her mouth in disbelief. Until this moment, Irina remembered the characteristics of the purple gold moonlight. The cold star containing a ray of the origin of the purple gold sky fire will release its true power under the bright starry sky. Now, the night has enveloped the whole of Britain, and the starry sky is hanging above the night sky. Endless stars have passed through the thick ground of the Ministry of Magic, through the layers of obstacles, and arrived in this prophecy hall, blessing this purple moonlight with the power of the starry sky. It was this power of the starry sky that dyed the Zouari-Hanxing purple gold, and endowed it with endless lethality. Voldemort's body fell heavily to the ground. His body was cut in half, and riddled with countless ice slag holes. If any other wizard were here, he would probably be dead. But the powerful vitality given to him by the Demon King level wizard allowed him to have a glimmer of hope despite such injuries. The bloody dark mark shone on Voldemort's body, slowly recovering his injuries and the bloody holes on his body. Voldemort raised his wand and tapped his waist. The lower body that was cut by the purple gold edge was also reattached to his body. The only thing that made Voldemort feel extremely fortunate was that the purple gold moonlight released by Irina was just pure lethality, not black magic that could continuously erode the enemy's body until the enemy died. Otherwise, if his body was cut in half by a dark magic like the shadowless divine sharpness, then even if Voldemort was a Demon King level wizard with a strong recovery ability, there was no way he could reconnect the body that was constantly being eaten away by the dark magic. Voldemort stood up with difficulty. He looked at the purple star that was surrounding Irina and flashing with purple and gold light. He seemed to understand something. Power from the stars? So that's it. Voldemort whispered to himself. The power from the stars made Irina have almost invincible combat power under the night, and fighting Irina at night was obviously an unwise choice. Voldemort looked at Irina with hatred in his scholar eyes. He raised his wand, and his whole body turned into a thick black smoke and flew towards the Death Eater who was covered by Lin En's purple starfire. However, just as the thick black smoke passed through Lin's Zouari skyfire, engulfing the 20 or so Death Eaters, and preparing to flee, the purple Zouari skyfire actually burst into a purple gold light. The Zouari skyfire under the bright starry sky will exert its full power. Please reward and vote for me. Chapter 595. Stop showing off your affection. We are still here. The purple gold flames were like a cage of gods, encircling the black smoke transformed by Voldemort. No matter which direction the black smoke rushed, there would be a hotter purple gold flame burning to block it back. Roll. In the black smoke, Voldemort roared with a red face. He wished to kill the figure standing in the purple gold flames. Lin En looked at Voldemort expressionlessly. He could sense that his purple myrtle skyfire could not completely stop Voldemort. If Voldemort was willing to pay a certain price and compress the volume of the black smoke to a certain extent, he could still force his way through the purple myrtle skyfire and leave the Ministry of Magic. But the key is whether Voldemort is willing to pay this price. The purple gold flames are still spreading. If Lin En had not accurately controlled the killing range of the purple myrtle skyfire, otherwise the entire Ministry of Magic might have been destroyed in an instant. Looking at the purple gold flames approaching him, and then looking at Irina who was walking on the purple gold moonlight in the distance, Voldemort gritted his teeth and made a decision. Voldemort knew that compressing the volume of his body into black smoke and then forcibly breaking through the blockade of the purple gold skyfire was the only way for him to keep this body and leave alive. Otherwise, when Irina, who was walking on the moonlight, came here and attacked him together with Lin En, that would be his death. Voldemort no longer hesitated, while controlling the black smoke, to rush towards the purple gold skyfire directly above. He compressed the volume of the black smoke as much as possible. Voldemort's roars continued to come, and he drilled into the purple gold skyfire and flew towards the ceiling of the prophecy hall. Voldemort used the black smoke to drag those Death Eaters away, and now, in order to survive, he had to compress the volume of the black smoke, which also meant that he had to give up some of the Death Eaters. 15 figures gradually fell out of the black smoke, and under the burning of the purple gold flame, they turned into ashes and dissipated in the air in an instant. However, judging from the faces of the 15 figures, when they left the black smoke, the 15 Death Eaters who were burned to death seemed to be dark wizards who had just joined the Death Eater camp not long ago, and none of them were familiar faces. Death Eaters such as Mulciber, McNeil, Avery, Jugson, and Rookwood, who had a broken hand, were all taken away by Voldemort. Looking at the black smoke that went into the ceiling and disappeared, Lin waved his hand gently, dispersing the purple skyfire that almost covered half of the prophecy hall. On the other side, after seeing Voldemort escape, Irina also put away her ice crystal spear, and the ice power that turned half of the prophecy hall into ice and snow also gathered back into her body as Irina moved her mind. Irina, congratulations on joining the ranks of the Demon King level wizards. Lin En walked over with a smile and opened his arms to Irina. Looking at the dark red eyes with a gentle smile, Irina's eyebrows curved, and she happily threw herself into Lin En's arms and hugged him tightly. Just when Irina wanted to say something, Lin En's faint voice came from her ear. In fact, you are not sure if you can take that killing curse head on, right? Hearing Lin En's words, Irina's body stiffened. Lin En was referring to the killing curse that she blocked with her ice chainmail. The Avada Kedavra curse can ignore all magical defenses, and Irina's ice power is also included in it. Therefore, even though Irina knew that her ice chainmail had the effect of rebounding, refracting, and absorbing spells, she was not 100% sure that she could take that killing curse. When Irina took Voldemort's killing curse, it was not only Irina who felt uneasy, but also Lin En who was resisting the urge to attack from a distance. Lin En wanted to forcefully attack and use the forbidden magic fire to block the killing curse, but he could not be sure whether Irina was sure to take the killing curse. If Irina could take the killing curse, but Lin En tried to stop it, then Lin En's action would interfere with Irina's path to advancement. In that case, even if Irina could still advance to the level of Demon King through this battle, without the experience of wandering between life and death, she would certainly not be as powerful as she showed just now. Cut Voldemort in half with one blow. This was something that even Lin En could not do when he was promoted to the level of Demon King. As a Demon King wizard, even though Lin En was promoted a year earlier than Irina, he had no confidence that he could defeat her. After all, Lin En had to use all his efforts to control the forbidden magic fire to block the Avada Kedavra curse, but Irina was able to take it head on without getting hurt. If they really fought, then Lin En would probably be the one who got beaten. Have you forgotten? Lin En's tone suddenly became resentful beside Irina's ear, like a puppy abandoned by its owner. I said that your safety is more important to me than anything else, but you seem to have forgotten this. Irina froze, and Lin En's resentful tone made her dare not look up at him. Oh, I'm sure of it. Irina rubbed her head in Lin En's arms, as if she was acting coquettishly, and her snow white hair floated across Lin En's nose, leaving a hint of fragrance. You lied. Lin En's doting, but somewhat helpless voice sounded, and he hugged Irina's delicate body with his backhand. Irina finally raised her head, and her bright ice blue eyes stared straight at Lin En, who was so close. Just as the two were about to take the next step, an inopportune voice sounded. Hey, we are still here. Irving's voice startled the two people who were hugging each other. Irina crawled out of Lin's arms like a frightened little rabbit, put her hands behind her back, and looked up at the sky, pretending not to hear anything. Lin, with a friendly smile, slowly turned around and looked at Irving and the members of the DA army behind him, as well as the Ministry of Magic and the Order of the Phoenix who came to support. Harry and others behind Irving all looked like they wanted to say something but stopped, while the elders such as Professor Lupin smiled like ants. Ahem. Lin coughed lightly. Since the battle is over, we should go back. Let's go, everyone. Just as everyone was about to follow Lin to leave, Scrimgeour spoke. Scrimgeour looked at the members of the DA army solemnly and said, but before that, I hope you can give me an explanation. Why are you here, when you should be studying in Hogwarts Castle? Chapter 596. Do you think you died a good death? Hearing Scrimgeour's words, the DA army froze, and then they turned their eyes to Harry, who was at the end. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, Harry had no choice but to come out and tell Scrimgeour the content of his dream and the reason why he brought the DA army here. So, Scrimgeour frowned. Because of what happened in your dream, you took so many classmates to break into the Department of Mysteries without authorization, and almost killed them? Scrimgeour's sharp words made Harry tremble all over. He wanted to refute something, but he still lowered his head silently. What Scrimgeour said was indeed the truth, which made Harry unable to refute his words. If Sirius was really captured by Voldemort, then Harry could still say that he was trying to save his godfather. But the cruel reality was that everything that happened in his dream was Voldemort's trap, and he brought his companions here for the godfather who was captured in his imagination. It was also a fact that they almost died because of him. Just as Scrimgeour was about to continue speaking, Lin interrupted him. He looked at Harry calmly and said, should I tell you, Harry? Harry raised his head suddenly and saw Lin's calm face. He had imagined that he would see anger, disappointment, hatred, or even just disgust on Lin's face, but he saw nothing, which made him feel extremely uncomfortable. If Lin lost her temper with him, or yelled at him, perhaps he would feel better. If you really died here, Harry, do you think you died a worthy death? Then what about them? Your friends, Ron, Hermione, or Irina? Will they die because of you? Or will they feel sad because of your death? And your teacher, Professor Lupin? Do you think you deserve his cultivation? And your godfather, does he know that you died because you wanted to save him who was originally safe? Lin asked calmly. Hearing Lin's words, Harry was stunned and looked at Sirius beside him. His godfather, Sirius, was looking at him with a worried and complicated look. Sirius knew why Harry came here. Harry wanted to say something, but he couldn't. He looked at Professor Lupin again. In the battle just now, Professor Lupin was hit by a curse and fell unconscious. If they hadn't dragged Professor Lupin to a safe place, the killing curse that followed would have killed Professor Lupin completely. Professor Lupin cultivated him and taught him so many things, but he almost died in front of him because of his recklessness. Harry's Adam's apple rolled, and he looked at Ron, Hermione, and his DA companions behind him. They almost died because of him. Especially Neville. He was hit in the back by so many crushing curses, and almost died on the spot. It was not until now that he woke up slowly under the healing magic of Elsa and Irina. Harry looked over, and Irina, who had looked up at the ceiling because of shyness before, also looked over at this moment, with a bit of worry in her expression, and disappointment. Harry felt like he had something stuck in his throat. He wanted to tell everyone in front of him that it was Voldemort's soul fragment that affected his emotions, and it was Voldemort's soul fragment that controlled him and made him make these decisions that he shouldn't have made. But he couldn't say it. Harry knew clearly that if he hadn't deliberately spied on Voldemort's perspective these days and had not subtly strengthened the connection between the soul fragment and his brain through repeated snooping, then Voldemort's soul fragment would never have affected him so deeply. If he hadn't been too stubborn and would rather believe in the non-existent picture than believe in Lin En and Irina's advice, even if the soul fragment affected his emotions and influenced his thinking, the remaining rationality would have enabled him to make the right decision. After all, in the past 6 months of study, he had successfully touched a little bit of the fur of brain occlusion, but he never activated the brain block from beginning to end. Even when he faced his crystal ball and felt that his subjective consciousness was controlled by an unknown force, he never thought of using the brain block. Instead, he followed the hidden consciousness that did not belong to him and grabbed the crystal ball. Harry's lips trembled and he said with difficulty, "I'm sorry for everyone." The pride of the boy was completely shattered in this battle between life and death. His eyes seemed to be clearer, but they were stained with a bit of guilt. Hermione took 2 steps at a time and walked forward. She held Harry's hand with both hands worriedly and said, "Don't be like this, Harry. It was our joint decision to come to the Department of Mysteries, wasn't it?" Ron stood there and said hesitantly, "Yes, buddy, I personally helped you recruit people." Looking at the 2 closest friends in front of him, Harry smiled bitterly and said, "Ron, Hermione, I will not escape my mistakes. If it weren't for Lin and Irina arriving in time, the sins I committed could not be repaid even with my life." Just as Ron and Hermione were about to say something to persuade Harry, Lin's voice rang again. Lin looked at the 3 people and the 7 DA soldiers behind them calmly and said, "DA soldiers, take the portkeys and return to Hogwarts Castle immediately. We will reissue the portkeys you have consumed later." Hearing Lin's words, Irving did not hesitate to take out the random portkey from his pocket and activated it. Astoria, Andy and Elsa followed closely behind. Ginny, Luna and Eva looked at Harry worriedly, and after meeting Lin's calm gaze, they also took out the anywhere key and let the white light take them away. Lin looked at Harry and the other 2 who had not moved for a long time, and shouted, "What are you waiting for?" Lin's voice woke the 3 of them up. Harry took out the anywhere key and activated it, while Ron and Hermione followed Harry. They seemed to plan to return to Hogwarts Castle and continue to persuade Harry. After all the DA troops had evacuated, Lin looked at Scrimgeour who was hesitant to speak. "I apologize to the Ministry of Magic on their behalf for the mistakes Harry and the others made. As for the loss of the Hall of Prophecy," Lin looked at the Hall of Prophecy, which was in a mess, and not even a single prophecy crystal ball was left. "We will compensate as much as possible, even if it is an astronomical figure. There are thousands of prophecy crystal balls sealed in the Hall of Prophecy. They are not just prophecies, but also symbols of wizard history and culture. The value of these prophecy crystal balls cannot be measured by numbers, and even if they can be measured by numbers, it must be an astronomical figure." But Lin En, who just came out of Gringotts, brought with him the wealth of 5 vaults. Even if the Ministry of Magic gave him an astronomical figure that others could not imagine, Lin En could definitely afford it. "Please give me rewards and monthly tickets." Chapter 597 I propose to add the death penalty. Chapter 597 I propose to add the death penalty. Scrimgeour was silent. The ones who should really compensate for the loss of the Hall of Prophecy should be Voldemort and those damned Death Eaters who destroyed it. Perhaps Harry, who was supposed to be studying at Hogwarts Castle, but accidentally broke into the Department of Mysteries, also had some responsibility, but they had already escaped with the portkey. And Lin, who was sincerely offering compensation in front of him, was the one he could not claim compensation from no matter what. After all, the destruction of the Hall of Prophecy had nothing to do with Lin, not to mention that Lin saved the lives of everyone here. If Lin and Irina had not arrived in time, they would probably have died at the hands of Voldemort. Just when Scrimgeour was in a dilemma, Barty Sr. spoke up. "The loss of the Hall of Prophecy has nothing to do with you or everyone at Hogwarts. It was caused by the Ministry of Magic's negligence in defense. So many Death Eaters broke into the Department of Mysteries, but the Ministry of Magic did not get any news. This is the Ministry of Magic's negligence. Barty Sr. generously put the responsibility on the Ministry of Magic, which made Scrimger look at him with a new eye. You know, the former Minister of Magic Fudge always shirked the responsibility when encountering anything. Even if it was indeed the Ministry of Magic's fault, Fudge would do everything possible to frame others. But their current minister, Barty Sr. Crouch, is willing to take the initiative to admit his mistakes. Barty Sr. looked at Scrimger and said, Director Scrimger, after the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, I think you have also discovered that the unspeakables alone may not be enough to guard the safety of the Department of Mysteries. Therefore, I plan to send auras to the Department of Mysteries. Director Scrimger, I need you to give a charter. As for this proposal, I will bring it up at the Ministry of Magic tomorrow. Barty Sr. said so. After hearing what Barty said, Scrimger, who was a little worried about Barty's promotion, finally showed admiration and respect. Scrimger nodded solemnly and said, Don't worry, Minister Crouch. Barty looked at Lin again. With outsiders present, he had to speak in a business-like tone. Mr. O, thank you and Miss Lovell for your help. The Ministry of Magic will remember your contribution. In addition, I will let the Daily Prophet report what happened here truthfully. In addition to those taken by reporters with magic cameras, the dynamic images published in the Daily Prophet can also be extracted from the memories of wizards. Therefore, they don't need to worry about what happened here being covered up. The truth will eventually be revealed, and after Barty became the Minister of Magic, it has become much easier to make the truth public. Lin smiled and said, Thank you, Minister Crouch. If there is nothing else, Irina and I will go first. The mess here was naturally handed over to the Ministry of Magic to clean up. Lin and Irina had no intention of continuing to get involved. After complimenting each other, they took the Anywhere key back to Hogwarts Castle. After the people in the Department of Mysteries dispersed, it was midnight. Even if the people who returned to Hogwarts Castle had a lot of things in their hearts, they could not bear the double fatigue of body and mind, and fell asleep on the soft big bed in the dormitory. For these students living in ivory towers, the most thrilling thing they have ever experienced is nothing more than the illusion test in the illusion array made by Lin. No matter how real and immersive the illusion is, they all know that it is fake. Even if they are hit by dozens of Avada Kedavra curses in the illusion test, it is all fake, and they will not really die. But in this short day, they experienced the turning point of their lives one after another, the Owl's exam, and broke into the Department of Mysteries, and fought with real Death Eaters. Finally, they also encountered the Dark Lord Voldemort, who once brought darkness to the British wizarding world, and brought death and fear to countless wizards, and survived Voldemort's killing. They just felt that this day was more exciting and thrilling than their whole lives. The next day, the Ministry of Magic. The news about the Battle of the Department of Mysteries had been published in the morning's Daily Prophet. All wizards who subscribed to the Daily Prophet saw the report of the Battle of the Department of Mysteries on this morning. The wizards in the British wizarding world were terrified by Voldemort's reappearance, and were happy that Irina became the second genius little witch in history to be promoted to the Demon King level wizard at the age of 15. After seeing Irina cut Voldemort's body in half with the purple gold moonlight, transformed by the purple star, countless wizards' houses in the British wizarding world were filled with irrepressible cheers. Voldemort's power is undeniable. Even Dumbledore, who is known as the greatest white wizard of this century, could only draw with him in the few battles with Voldemort that are well known to everyone, but could not defeat him. Even Lin, who repelled Voldemort in the Battle of Little Hangleton Village, could not cause such a severe blow to Voldemort. This made the wizards in the British magic world admire Irina's magical power very much, and spontaneously crowned Irina with the title of Savior of the New Era. Now, the senior officials and members of the Wizengamot who came to the Ministry of Magic have all seen the content of the Daily Prophet, and the attack on the Department of Mysteries also made them feel panic. Even though Voldemort and the Death Eaters who broke into the Department of Mysteries have been driven away by Lin and Irina, they know clearly that the Minister of Magic, Barty, who just took office yesterday, will definitely make a fuss about this matter. The new official takes office with 3 fires, and the 3 fires set by Barty himself have only been burned now. Although old Barty had said before that the second and third fires would be lit in a week. The attack on the Department of Mysteries was obviously the best time to light these two fires. Just as the high-ranking officials of the Ministry of Magic thought, old Barty came to the main seat and told the story of the battle at the Department of Mysteries and his proposal to send auras to guard the Department of Mysteries, and then he lit his second fire. According to the survey data of the Aura Office, in this short period of 1 year, nearly 40% of the dark wizards in all corners of the British wizarding world have joined Voldemort and joined the Death Eaters. Those dark wizards are scrambling to join the Death Eaters, but they are not afraid of the Ministry of Magic's arrest. They are arrogant and ignore the authority of the Ministry of Magic. Why is that? I thought about it and finally came to a conclusion. They think that, even if we catch them, we can't do anything to them. Azkaban prison for life imprisonment? The prison that Voldemort can come and go freely is no longer a place that the Death Eaters fear. We can't punish them, we can't let them receive the punishment they deserve, and we can't give an explanation to the people who have suffered from the scourge of the Death Eaters. This is an important reason why those dark wizards joined the Death Eaters without scruples. Therefore, I, the Minister of Magic Barty Crouch, hereby propose to add the death penalty. Old Barty lowered his head slightly, and a sharp gleam flashed in his shrewd eyes, which was blocked by his crossed hands. Chapter 598 Malfoy's Request for Asylum. Old Barty's voice was like a thunderbolt from the blue sky, bombarding the hearts of every high-ranking official in the Ministry of Magic. Except for Scrimgeour. Everyone stared at old Barty in astonishment, as if it was incredible that old Barty would come up with such a proposal. You know, both ordinary people in the UK and the magic world have long abolished the so-called death penalty. As early as 1969, the two houses of the British Parliament reached a consensus to abolish the death penalty. In fact, the last execution of a prisoner in the UK was in 1964, and the use of the death penalty was stopped in 1965. In the British magic world, wizards tacitly chose to use Dementors to guard Azkaban prison, replacing the death penalty that should have been in place with the punishment of life imprisonment in Azkaban prison. In the eyes of wizards at the time, being imprisoned in Azkaban prison for a lifetime, being squeezed out of happiness by Dementors without limit, leaving only sadness and despair, such a punishment is undoubtedly more terrible and more desperate than the death penalty. But now, those damn Dementors have turned to Voldemort, and Azkaban prison has no deterrent effect on those dark wizards. No matter from which angle, it seems that it is inevitable to restart the death penalty in the British wizarding world. Vote. Old Barty looked at everyone calmly and said so. The addition of the death penalty was the result of the discussion between old Barty and Lin, and the royal family would naturally fully support this decision. Therefore, after the vote began, nearly half of the wizards immediately raised their hands in favor. After thinking about the pros and cons, many of the remaining wizards chose to raise their hands in favor. Old Barty's sudden proposal to add the death penalty really surprised them. But after calming down, thinking seriously about the current situation of the British wizarding world, and analyzing old Barty's words, they had to admit that what old Barty said was right. The economic base determines the superstructure, and the laws of the Ministry of Magic must also adapt to the social environment of the wizarding world. When the vote ended, the number of wizards who raised their hands in favor had exceeded 2/3 of the total. Very good, said old Barty calmly. The vote was passed. After the vote to add the death penalty was passed, there was no suspense about the restart of the death penalty. The only things that the high-ranking officials of the Ministry of Magic and the members of the Wizengamot needed to discuss next were the sentencing of the death penalty and the instruments needed for the execution of the death penalty. These matters could not be discussed in one meeting. Until the end of this meeting, there were only 2 points that everyone could agree on. First, if a Death Eater who joined the Death Eater camp and had a dark mark on his arm showed any resistance during the arrest process, the auras would be allowed to kill him on the spot. The arrested Death Eaters would be allowed to use the truth serum directly. Once it was found that the Death Eater had used the unforgivable curse to kill other wizards, he would be sentenced to death directly. The second was the instruments for executing the death penalty. The members of the Wizengamot decided to set the place of execution in the death hall of the Department of Mysteries, and use the curtain on the steps to execute the criminals. In this way, the executioners did not need to chant the spell to kill the criminals themselves and did not need to bear the psychological shadow brought by killing. They only need to push the criminal into the veil lightly and let him die silently. Hogwarts Castle, Great Hall. Countless owls flew in from the entrance hall and threw the Daily Prophet accurately into the hands of the little wizards. The little wizards opened the Daily Prophet in their hands, and after seeing the content above, they all exclaimed, "The great heist of Gringotts." Dumbledore and Rowell personally came to the scene. Horcrux is destroyed. The relics of the 4 giants of Hogwarts turned out to be the Horcruxes of you-know-who. The Department of Mysteries was attacked by you-know-who and Death Eaters. The second 15-year-old Demon King level wizard. Who is she? The Ministry of Magic's response to the attack on the Department of Mysteries. 5 explosive news appeared on the pages of the Daily Prophet, and the content of each piece of news made these little wizards feel incredible. Soon, the great heist of Gringotts and the battle of the Department of Mysteries became the talk of these little wizards. Many young wizards gathered in 2s and 3s, discussing the reason why Harry and others appeared in the Department of Mysteries, the conspiracy between Voldemort and the Death Eaters, and how powerful Irina, who had been promoted to the level of a Demon King, was, and could cut Voldemort in half with one blow. Even many little lions from Gryffindor Academy, who had a good relationship with Irina on weekdays, personally found Irina and curiously asked about what happened last night. The uproar caused by the Battle of the Department of Mysteries in the British wizarding world was even greater than the Battle of Little Hangleton Village last year. Not only Irina, but also Harry and others who participated in this battle, also gained a lot of fanatical little fans, chasing them to inquire about the process of the Battle of the Department of Mysteries. Ron was happy to hear about this. He happily boasted to the young wizards around him about his achievements last night, including knocking down several Death Eaters with spells, etc. But Harry was very bored. If he hadn't believed the content of the dream and brought his companions to the Department of Mysteries, how could this battle have happened? Exclamation mark. Perhaps in the eyes of those little wizards, they participated in the battle of the Department of Mysteries and knocked down many Death Eaters, which was a very cool, great, glamorous, and proud thing. But only those who have experienced this war in person will know how dangerous this war is and how close they are to death. If members of the DA army were injured or killed in this war, Harry would never forgive himself in his life. Regardless of what happened in the Gryffindor common room, let's turn our perspective to the Slytherin dormitory at this time. The Daily Prophet gave a list of deaths in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, and the names of Old Goyle and Old Crabbe were among them. After learning of the death of their father, Goyle and Crabbe both left Hogwarts Castle in horror. And now, there are only Lin and Draco Malfoy in this dormitory. In order to prevent his roommate from affecting his alchemy, Lin specially used alchemy to create a soundproof and opaque energy wall. At this time, Draco Malfoy looked very entangled. He clenched his hands tightly and stared at the energy wall that separated Lin's bed. After a long while, Draco slowly exhaled a breath of turbid air. He seemed to have made a decision, and his eyes showed a bit of determination. He walked forward and gently knocked on the opaque energy wall. He knew that Lin on the other side of the energy wall could see what was happening here. As early as 5 years ago, when Draco had just entered school, his relationship with Lin was relatively harmonious, and Lin had allowed him to visit the other side of the energy wall and the alchemical equipment. Therefore, he knew that the opacity of the energy wall was one way, and Lin on the other side could clearly see everything that happened here. But in the next few years, his father exposed his identity as a Death Eater and stood on the opposite side of Lin, and their relationship gradually became distant. Buzz, a faint buzzing sound sounded, and the thick energy wall disappeared. Lin En looked at Draco calmly and asked, "What's the matter?" Looking at Lin En's dark red eyes, those dark red eyes seemed to be always so calm and unperturbed. Draco hesitated for a long time and finally said, "Lin En, I want to ask for asylum. Please give me rewards and monthly tickets." Chapter 599. Find a Horcrux and destroy it. Request. Asylum? Lin raised her eyebrows and looked at Draco with interest. "What do you mean?" Draco gritted his teeth and said, "I think the Dark Lord, Voldemort and the Death Eaters are becoming increasingly weak. I don't think joining Voldemort would be a good choice. Lin, did you notice that my father had apparated away from Little Hangleton Village before the battle began?" The Malfoy family has no intention of being an enemy of you, and we are also worried about Voldemort's revenge. Therefore, I hope to ask you for asylum, and hope to ask you to protect the Malfoy family. For this, the Malfoy family is willing to offer its loyalty to you." Draco finished his words quickly, lowered his head, and did not dare to look into Lin's eyes. Draco was very clear about the sins committed by the Malfoy family. Even a few years ago, he had offended Irina many times, and Irina was Lin's girlfriend. Therefore, Draco did not hold much hope that Lin would agree to his asylum request, but this was already Draco's last hope. Except for Lin and Irina, no one can help the Malfoy family, not even Dumbledore. If even Lin is unwilling to help him, the Malfoy family will be completely finished. Perhaps the Malfoy family can hide the coordinates of the manor, so that Voldemort will not find it in a short time, but that is not a long-term solution after all. Unless someone in the Malfoy family is willing to cast the Fidelius charm on Malfoy Manor, the Malfoy family can be at peace. But in fact, the Malfoy family, which has offended countless people, has no one to trust at all, and there are only Lucius Malfoy, Narcissa Malfoy and Draco Malfoy left in Malfoy Manor. For the Malfoy family, who value family affection, they cannot allow any of them to protect the Malfoy family at the cost of their own safety. Oh. Lin did not reject Draco's request immediately, but asked with interest, "The Death Eaters are declining? Why do you think so? If I remember correctly, the number of Dark Wizards joining the Death Eaters should be increasing, right? I'm afraid that nearly 40% of the Dark Wizards in the British magic world have become Death Eaters. Shouldn't you be optimistic about the future of the Death Eaters?" Lin asked softly. Draco's face turned pale. He didn't know whether Lin really believed this or was mocking him. He answered with a stiff face, "I know that the war between wizards has never been about numbers, but about the Demon King level wizards. As a Demon King level wizard, you, Lin, are not weaker than Voldemort, and Irina has the power to defeat Voldemort, not to mention that Hogwarts also has Professor Dumbledore. The Death Eaters have no way out, just like Voldemort will probably be killed by you, after losing the weapons you have been looking for. We quit the Death Eaters, and don't want to stand on the opposite side of you. However, before Voldemort is killed, we must find a way to save our own lives." Draco said so. Hearing Draco's words, Lin couldn't help but feel surprised. This was not only because Draco believed that Voldemort would lose, but also because he mentioned Voldemort's weapon, which was the Horcrux they were looking for. "The weapon we are looking for. Where did you know this?" Lin put away his contemptuous expression and asked seriously. Draco answered honestly, "From the Gringotts robbery that happened yesterday, the Daily Prophet reported news about Voldemort's Horcruxes, and according to my judgment, the weapons you are looking for are those Horcruxes. Not only that, from the pictures of the battle in the Department of Mysteries published in the Daily Prophet, I can see that Voldemort's escape was not an accident, but your intention. In other words, you can keep him in the Department of Mysteries forever. And the reason you didn't do this may be that Voldemort's Horcruxes have not been completely destroyed. Even if you kill Voldemort, there will be another Voldemort resurrected in an unknown place, and in that case, it will be more difficult for you to kill him completely." Draco said so. Lin sat up straight, and he couldn't help but look at the former dandy in front of him with some respect. So many things can be inferred from just a few words in the Daily Prophet report. It seems that Draco Malfoy is not as simple as he imagined. Yes, how could he be a simple person when he was given the important task of assassinating Dumbledore in the original book? Exclamation mark. Yes, Lin clapped his hands lightly and said, "So, you want me to protect the Malfoy family until Voldemort dies? But why should I do this?" Hearing Lin's words, Draco's face turned a little paler. He said with difficulty, "The Malfoy family is willing to offer loyalty to you." Lin interrupted Draco before he finished speaking. Lin said calmly, "The loyalty of the Malfoy family? Sorry, I don't believe in the loyalty of the Malfoy family. You, especially your father, are just fence sitters in my opinion. You will side with whichever side is stronger. If Voldemort ever has the power to deal with us, I believe the Malfoy family will turn to Voldemort at the first opportunity and use your property in exchange for Voldemort's forgiveness. If the only thing the Malfoy family can offer is this illusory loyalty, then I think I can't agree to your asylum request, Lin said indifferently. Draco's face was very ugly. He clenched his fists and wanted to accuse Lin of insulting his father. But he felt like he had something stuck in his throat. He knew that the lives of his family might be in the hands of the black-haired young man in front of him. Draco said incoherently, "No, don't do this. I ask you to protect the Malfoy family. I'm willing to pay whatever you want me to pay. I'm willing, as long as you can protect the Malfoy family. Whatever." Lin narrowed his eyes slightly. "Do you really think so?" Lin's words gave Malfoy hope again. He nodded vigorously and said firmly, "Yes, I'm willing to pay everything, as long as you protect the Malfoy family." Hearing this, Lin smiled. Then, his light voice came out. "In this case, please use your intelligence and wisdom to find a Horcrux of Voldemort alone, bring it to me, and destroy it in front of me. Well, just regard it as offering your sincerity to me," Lin said softly. Chapter 600. It's time to clear a Gillis name. Looking for Horcruxes? Lin's words were like a bolt from the blue. Draco murmured in a low voice, looking at Lin in disbelief. He didn't expect Lin to give him such an important task, even though he was still the son of a Death Eater, and even though he hadn't gotten rid of the suspicion of being a Death Eater. Moreover, could he really find the Horcruxes? Exclamation mark. Regardless of the fact that Draco was now restricted in every way and his father's identity as a Death Eater made it almost impossible for him to move forward, even if he tried his best, he might not be able to find the clues of the Horcruxes, right? Exclamation mark. In the absence of any clues, how easy would it be to find Voldemort's Horcruxes? Exclamation mark. Thinking of this, Draco couldn't help but doubt whether Lin was willing to give him a chance, and finding the Horcruxes was a test for Lin, or was Lin just using the Horcruxes as an excuse to reject him? Exclamation mark. Just as Draco was struggling with himself, Lin's voice rang out again. "Oh, by the way, let me give you a simple clue. One of Voldemort's Horcruxes is now in Hogwarts Castle, in a place that is difficult for people to find. As for how to find this Horcrux, it depends on you, Draco." Lin smiled and looked at Draco, saying so. Hearing Lin's words, Draco raised his head suddenly, and he looked at Lin in disbelief. "What did you say?" Draco almost jumped up. "You said there is a Horcrux of Voldemort in Hogwarts Castle?" Draco's body was trembling slightly. He suspected that his ears were broken, and he could hear such a fantasy. Voldemort's Horcrux was hidden in Hogwarts Castle. How could Dumbledore not notice it? Exclamation mark. If Dumbledore had noticed it, how could he allow Voldemort to hide the Horcrux in the castle? He valued the safety of the little wizard more than his own life, didn't he? Exclamation mark. Lin said softly, "I'll give you a second clue. The carrier of the Horcrux is a relic of the four great masters of Hogwarts, the Ravenclaw's diadem. It is hidden in a place that people cannot reach on a normal day. Only when people have a strong desire, that place will appear in front of people." Lin gave Draco no longer a hint, but a clear indication. In Lin's opinion, if Draco, who had received so many clues, could not even find the Horcrux Ravenclaw's diadem, then Draco would not be worthy of his attention, and the Malfoy family would not need to accept his protection. Draco still had a dull expression. After a long while, he seemed to have accepted these incredible information and calmed down. He showed a firm look on his face and said, "Don't worry, Lin, I will definitely bring the Ravenclaw crown to you." Hearing Draco's words, Lin finally smiled. He nodded slightly and said, "During this period, if the Malfoy family is in danger, I can accept your request for temporary asylum. But before you get the Horcrux, Draco, I can't trust the Malfoy family for the time being. You should understand this." Draco nodded vigorously. Lin continued, "Similarly, my patience is limited, and the deadline is half a year, that is, before Christmas next year. Is that okay?" Draco hesitated and nodded again. "Very good." Lin smiled and stretched out his hand to Draco. "The contract is done." Draco no longer hesitated. He held Lin's hand. Invisible runes spread from Lin's wrist and connected between Lin and Draco's tightly clasped hands. That was the contract magic that Lin had researched. It could take effect through the action of shaking hands after both parties expressed their meaning orally. After shaking hands, Draco became very motivated and immediately ran out of the Slytherin dormitory as if he was going to look for clues about the place that Lin mentioned can only be reached by people with strong desires, as well as clues about the Ravenclaw crown. Seeing Draco running out in a hurry, Lin smiled and shook his head. He took out a two-sided mirror from his pocket, and after injecting magic power into it, he asked lightly, "Old Barty, has the proposal to add the death penalty passed?" The two-sided mirror transmitted Old Barty's voice with some joy. It passed smoothly. With the power of the Royal family and the battle last night, they were intimidated to a certain extent. Most people agreed to add the death penalty, and another part abstained. There were not many people who opposed. Lin nodded slightly and said, "Very good. Next, it's time to put the matter of clearing Regulus Black's name and restoring his innocence on the agenda. I'll ask Sirius to use the double copy spell to make a copy of the imitation locket and the letter left by Regulus for you, and at the same time, I'll send you the evidence we have after sorting it out. You just need to let the auras resurvey the scene so that the evidence can form a chain of evidence that is sufficient to prove Regulus Black's innocence." Lin said. Although Regulus was indeed a real Death Eater at first, everything he did undoubtedly proved that he was a thorough hero. In any case, Regulus's sacrifice and contribution to destroying Voldemort's Horcrux and finally defeating Voldemort should be remembered by people, rather than buried by the sands of time. Understood. Old Barty's voice came out again. British Wizarding World, Avery Manor. Today, among the sacred 28 pureblood families in the British Wizarding world, the Lestrange family and the Caro family have been wiped out and completely extinct, and their family businesses have been completely swallowed up by the Rowell family. Among them, the only two descendants of the Caro family, the Caro brothers and sisters, were killed by Irina in the Battle of Little Hangleton Village. And the only three members of the Lestrange family left. Rabaston Lestrange was killed by Irina in the Battle of Little Hangleton Village, and Bellatrix Lestrange received door-to-door service from Lin and died in the endless sea of fire. Even the last member of the Lestrange family, Rodolphus Lestrange, had his head smashed by Irving's Palm Thunder in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries last night. Therefore, among the remaining pureblood families, the only ones controlled by Death Eaters are the Avery, Malfoy, Not, Travers and Yaxley families. Among them, the Malfoy family chose to betray, and the manors where the Not, Travers and Yaxley families are located, are so magnificent and conspicuous. These three families have all placed their own people in the Ministry of Magic. These people are not Death Eaters, but they are controlled by them. Please give me rewards and monthly tickets. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.